Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Earlier today, President Trump delivering remarks at the Oval Office, and later, cryptocurrency titans are set to meet with President Trump at the White House. They'll hold a discussion on how the government will enact Trump's vision of making the country the crypto capital of the world. Justin Trudeau speaks to Canadians ahead of his resignation. A new prime minister will take over tariff negotiations with President Trump. And President Trump is proposing a rapid path to citizenship for South African farmers and their families. There are no details yet on what the plan entails. We'll have more with an analysis. The Federal Reserve is in no rush to cut interest rates. Fed Chair Jerome Powell reports the latest data at the University of Chicago Monetary Policy Forum. Success for Starlink. It's been granted permission to use higher-powered direct-to-cell connectivity, meaning faster and more reliable services for consumers and 911 calls. President Trump confirms that U.S. and Ukrainian officials are set to meet again. What he says about the difference between working with Russia and with Ukraine.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
America's economy added 151,000 jobs in February, this as employment growth rebounded. Now, that number came in below the 160,000 jobs economists were expecting to see. The unemployment rate, meanwhile, ticked up to 4.1% from 4% the prior month. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data that was released today marks another solid month of job gains and a continuation of a historic expansion of the labor market. However, recent economic data has shown uncertainty, and layoffs are on the rise amid monumental policy shifts from the Trump administration. And just moments ago, President Trump touted job numbers in the Oval Office and mentioned a reciprocal tariff to Canada as early as today. And joining us live from the White House is NTD's Iris Tao. Iris, what do you have?
Good afternoon to you, Fiona. Earlier this morning, President Trump, speaking from the Oval Office, touted the latest jobs numbers, calling what he is referring to as a manufacturing turnaround. He says in the last month alone, there were 10,000 new jobs created in the manufacturing industry, adding that 9,000 of them came from the auto industry. Watch.
We've not only stopped that manufacturing collapse, but we've begun to rapidly reverse it and get major gains. We created 10,000 manufacturing jobs in February alone. That hasn't happened in a long time.
And President Trump also previews more actions to come as early as today. He says he's going to slap reciprocal tariffs on Canadian lumber and dairy products as soon as today or early next week. And when asked about recent changes to his tariffs policy as well as concerns about market instability, and President Trump says that there could be a little bit of disturbance, but tariffs would always just be on and off, and there will be changes. Watch.
You have a fender made in Canada, you have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it.
And just the day before, President Trump announced that he's pausing most tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods covered by USMCA, and that's amid his push to bring these companies to the U.S. Back to you.
Iris, lots going on between the Russia-Ukraine war peace talks as well. What did the president have to say about Ukraine?
Sure. So inside the Oval Office, President Trump again said that he believes Ukraine does not have the cards, while adding today that he believes Russia has all the cards. He also says that he's finding it more difficult to deal with Ukraine as he doesn't know if Ukraine actually wants to settle. Watch.
You have a fender made in Canada, you have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it.
And this morning, President Trump issued a warning to Russia, saying that he's considering banking sanctions as well as tariffs on the country as he's pushing for the two countries to come together for a ceasefire deal. And President Trump says he wants to help Ukraine and want to stop people from dying. And then next week, Ukrainian and U.S. officials will meet in Saudi Arabia. Fiona.
Iris, President Trump is also going to speak at a White House crypto summit this afternoon. What do you know about that?
Sure. So at 3 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon, President Trump is expected to hold the first White House cryptocurrency summit hearing from industry leaders. And just earlier, right now, actually, I asked the White House crypto czar about how the administration plans to balance the industry's desire for deregulation with the need for the administration to protect American consumers from volatility as well as fraud in that industry. And here's what he told me. Watch.
If we make the rules clear to them, I think they will abide. And if they still break the rules, and I'm talking about bad actors, not the good ones, then they'll be punished. There should be punishments for bad actors. But I think there's many more good actors than bad actors, and they need to be enabled. The innovation needs to be enabled.
And just the day before, President Trump announced the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a separate U.S. stockpile of digital assets. But the crypto czar told us that it does not mean the administration is encouraging everyday Americans to all invest in a cryptocurrency, saying that if you are a retiree relying on a fixed income, it might not be a good idea to invest in such a volatile currency. Back to you.
Well, the president has a very busy agenda scheduled for today. Iris, thank you for the update. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau vowed to put his country first amid a tariff battle with the United States. Trudeau's comments came as he prepares to step down after a decade as the head of Canada's Liberal Party.
On a personal level, I've made sure that every single day in this office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that we got you. Even in the very last days of this government, we will not let Canadians down today and long into the future. Because in the past few weeks, we've been working with our provincial and territorial partners to make sure that families can rely on this system, not just for years to come, but will allow this system to lock in, to become something that no government, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, could ever go back on.
Canada's Liberal Party is attempting to capitalize on a wave of patriotism. Part of that strategy is adopting policies designed to appeal to conservative-leaning voters. The leading candidates campaigning to replace Trudeau took part in a televised debate on Monday. They spent considerable time discussing the need to stand up to U.S. President Donald Trump. A new Canadian leader is expected to be named on March 9th. Meanwhile, Mexico's economy minister says Mexican officials will meet with U.S. trade officials next week in order to discuss American tariffs on aluminum and steel imports. Many of Mexico's exports to the U.S. are temporarily protected by a new 4-week pause. However, President Trump said Thursday that Mexican steel and aluminum will fall under a 25% tariff starting March 12th. Mexico's economy minister Marcelo Ebrard said he is already working with the U.S. trade representative team. He said next week's meetings will be to clarify what is being proposed and the direction things are moving in. Ebrard added that Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is following up with the U.S. on that matter. China's foreign minister responded to the U.S. tariff hikes earlier today, accusing Washington of meeting good with evil and vowing retaliation. This comes 2 days after China said it's ready for a trade war or any kind of war with the U.S. President Trump raised tariffs on all Chinese goods from 10% to 20% on Tuesday. This is on top of existing levies. The tariff hikes were implemented to punish China for its role in the U.S. fentanyl crisis, which is the leading cause of death among Americans aged 18 to 45. Foreign Minister Wang Yi argued that China has done a lot to curb the exports of the deadly drug. However, Congressional reports last year found that Beijing has been subsidizing the manufacturing and export of fentanyl. Beijing has already countered U.S. tariffs with its own, an additional 15% duty on several American agricultural goods, including soy, chicken, and pork. Wang warned that more retaliation against the U.S. is coming. The World Trade Organization chief urged America's global trading partners to listen to U.S. concerns about tariffs and to engage in dialogue with Washington rather than embrace tit-for-tat measures on tariffs.
I think we need to listen to the United States and listen to what their concerns are and say, how can we also help them deal with their concerns? 30 years ago, when this system was put in place, the U.S. bound its tariffs at a rate that was quite low, maybe around 2.5%, to benefit its population and the outside world, and it has benefited. I think they helped with this lifting all boats. Now the U.S. is saying this doesn't work for me anymore.
The WTO Director General said there was no cause for panic, preferring to describe tariff threats and reversals as disruptions. She spoke during a discussion alongside former German Chancellor Angela Merkel at the WTO headquarters in Geneva. Now, she also said there's a lot of trade that continues, which is not impacted by Washington's tariff decisions. President Trump responded to growing criticism over Elon Musk's government cuts, saying he wants his cabinet to keep good people. Here's Trump at the Oval Office yesterday.
I want the cabinet members go first, keep all the people you want, everybody that you need. And we want them to keep the good people. And so we're going to be watching them, and Elon and the group are going to be watching them. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
The meeting was called following complaints from agency heads to top White House officials about the blunt force approach of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which Musk heads. Under the billionaire's direction, DOGE has cut more than 100,000 employees from the 2.3 million strong federal workforce in a matter of weeks. More than 30 lawsuits have already been filed by unions and other advocacy groups challenging DOGE's actions. Thursday marks Trump's first notable public effort to restrain Musk. But when asked if Musk had moved too fast with DOGE, Trump said he did not think so, and that Musk is teaching everybody how to cut costs.
No, I think they've done an amazing job. They've done an amazing job.
After the meeting, Trump on Truth Social doubled down on the importance of retaining valuable staff, saying, quote, "It's very important that we cut levels down to where they should be, but it's also important to keep the best and most productive people," and vowing to use the, quote, "scalpel" rather than the hatchet in future cuts.
Maryland, California, and 18 other state attorneys general are suing nearly 24 federal agencies yesterday. They seek to reinstate tens of thousands of newer workers laid off in recent weeks. Among the requirements is providing 60 days of advance notice to workers and states. According to the lawsuit, the agencies have not been complying with legal requirements for reductions in force. The states say they've been harmed because they're struggling to identify which agencies have conducted layoffs and which terminated workers require state support. And moving on, the Department of Government Efficiency says it terminated the leases of 30 Food and Drug Administration sites across the country. In this week's announcement, DOGE said the properties totaled nearly 250,000 square feet. It said terminating these leases would lead to nearly $30 million in savings. DOGE also canceled property leases at a number of other government departments, including the State Department and the Social Security Administration. Meanwhile, the CIA will lay off an unreleased number of junior officers as part of DOGE's cost-cutting sweep. A spokesperson said yesterday, new hires with behavioral issues or who have been deemed a poor fit will be fired. And DOGE said yesterday that it canceled a $56,000 contract to water about 8 plants at the Veteran Affairs Department. DOGE said it would water the plants for free instead. Coming up, the Federal Reserve is in no rush to cut interest rates just yet. Fed Chair Jerome Powell reports the latest data at the University of Chicago Monetary Policy Forum. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented My Pillow. My Pillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got My Pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King My Pillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic My Pillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Thanks for staying with us. Success for Starlink. Its direct-to-cell internet service has been granted permission to operate at higher power, which it says will allow faster and more reliable news services for consumers all across the country. The Federal Communications Commission decided to waive a rule that limited power levels. SpaceX wants to operate at what's called a higher power flux density, which the company says will avoid clashes with adjacent band networks. This is to make connectivity faster and more reliable for consumers, as well as 911 emergency calls in remote locations. T-Mobile supported the move, providing its own analyses that indicated the higher power level would not cause interference to terrestrial networks such as T-Mobile. The FCC granted the waiver on the condition that SpaceX address any harmful interference if it occurs. And United Airlines will benefit from the increased power of Starlink, as it's set to install Starlink on its own aircraft, with the first installation already completed. United says install time took just 4 days compared to over 10 for other Wi-Fi systems, and it expects its entire regional fleet to be completed by the end of the year. Moving on now, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell provided an update on the latest economic data at the University of Chicago Monetary Policy Forum. Today's numbers come as the Trump administration pursues its America First policy.
Despite elevated levels of uncertainty, the U.S. economy continues to be in a good place. The labor market is solid, and inflation has moved closer to our 2% longer-run goal. At the Fed, we are intently focused on our dual mandate goals given to us by Congress: maximum employment and stable prices. Turning to the recent data, the economy has been growing at a solid pace. GDP expanded at a 2.3% annual rate in the fourth quarter of last year, extending a period of consistent growth that has been supported by resilient consumer spending. Recent indicators point to a possible moderation in consumer spending relative to the rapid growth over the second half of 2024. Further, recent surveys of households and businesses point to heightened uncertainty about the economic outlook. It remains to be seen how these developments might affect future spending and investment. Sentiment readings have not been a good predictor of consumption growth in recent years. We continue to carefully monitor a variety of indicators of household and business spending. Turning to the labor market, many indicators show that the labor market is solid and broadly in balance. The jobs report released this morning showed employers added 151,000 jobs to payrolls in February, and the unemployment rate ticked up 0.1% to 4.1% last month. Smoothing over the month-to-month volatility, since September, employers have added a solid 200,000 jobs a month on average. The unemployment rate remains low and is held in a narrow range between 3.9% and 4.2% over the past year.
Powell added that the U.S. Central Bank will be in no rush to cut any interest rates while it waits for the impact of Trump's policies on the economy. President Trump has announced a series of moves, including steep import tariffs on major trading partners, including Mexico and Canada. Trump has also doubled tariffs on imports from China. Now, the Fed is expected to hold its benchmark interest rate steady between 4.25% and 4.5% at its March 18th meeting. Policymakers will also issue new economic projections. A federal judge denied the request of Treasury workers to block access to their personal data. The judge denied their request for a preliminary injunction over the Department of Government Efficiency and the Treasury Department's access to sensitive banking information. The judge ruled the Federal Workers Union did not present enough evidence to clear the high bar needed for emergency relief. The judge noted the Treasury Department has taken steps to monitor and control DOJ's access to the highly protected payment system. That system is used to send out trillions of dollars in payments for the federal government. The department told the court it is taking steps to limit the risk that sensitive information could be disclosed outside of the government. And a federal judge ruled that President Donald Trump unlawfully fired the chairwoman of the National Labor Relations Board. Gwynne Wilcox had been serving as chair of the NLRB. In a ruling yesterday, U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell called Trump's attempt earlier this year to fire her a, quote, blatant violation of the law. The judge, in her 36-page opinion, said the president is testing the courts by trying to push the bounds of his office. This makes it the third time in less than a week that a federal judge has ruled it is unlawful for Trump to fire officials who head independent agencies. And another judge ordered the Trump administration to expedite payments to partners of the U.S. Agency for International Development and the State Department. The administration faces multiple lawsuits on the foreign aid freeze and for ending the USAID. During a 4-hour hearing yesterday, the federal judge questioned the Trump administration's view that presidents have the authority to override Congress on foreign policy spending. A day before the hearing, the Supreme Court ruled that President Trump cannot freeze funding that comes through USAID. The judge has now given the administration until Monday to pay almost $2 billion in debt owed under foreign aid funding agreements. President Trump told reporters yesterday that he wants U.S. states to run their own schools. He said student loans will be handled by the Treasury Department, the Small Business Administration, or the Commerce Department. That's if the Education Department gets abolished. Take a listen.
No, I want to bring the schools back to the states. And, you know, I've said it 100 times. We're ranked at the bottom of the list, and yet we spend more. We're ranked number one for cost per student. We're ranked at the bottom of the list in education. And I know if I bring it back to Iowa, Indiana, Idaho, all these great states, I think I could say 40 states, I want to bring it back. 10 states won't be perfect. 5 states will be probably not so good. But they will be every bit as good as Norway and Denmark and Sweden and all of the states that are rated at the top. If you tell me about Indiana and some of these great states that run really well, Iowa, you tell me about those states, and if they run their own education, they're going to do a lot better than somebody sitting in Washington, D.C. that couldn't care less about the pupils out in the Midwest.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says Democrats will not support a short-term government funding bill, putting pressure on House Republicans to pass it alone. Lawmakers face a March 14th deadline in order to avoid a government shutdown. Speaker Mike Johnson has called for a continuing resolution to fund the government through September, but with Democrats opposed, he'll need full Republican support. Senator John Hovins says a shutdown remains uncertain, with the first test being whether House Republicans can pass the funding bill alone. President Trump has also backed a temporary funding bill, urging lawmakers to get it done. Attorney General Pam Bondi calls for swift justice after American soldiers were charged with betraying their country. 3 Army soldiers, 2 active duty and 1 former, have been arrested for their roles in a bribery and theft scheme involving sensitive military information. An Army supply sergeant is accused of attempting to transmit classified national defense information to individuals in China. Officials say the soldier conspired to sell classified hard drives marked secret and top secret to China, receiving at least $10,000. He's also accused of trying to sell a stolen encryption-capable computer and sensitive military documents. Some materials included information on military readiness for a potential conflict with China. Meanwhile, 2 other soldiers face charges for conspiring to steal government property and accepting bribes. FBI Director Kash Patel used the case to warn of China's ongoing efforts to steal U.S. military secrets. And the FBI has added former Canadian Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding to its 10 most wanted list, offering a $10 million reward for information leading to his arrest. Wedding is accused of running a massive international drug trafficking network and orchestrating multiple murders linked to the ring. Authorities say he distributed cocaine across U.S. cities and in Canada as well. They say he used long-haul semi-trucks to move an estimated 60 tons of cocaine annually between Colombia, Mexico, Southern California, and Canada. The FBI calls Wedding a very dangerous man, citing the alleged murders of his competitors. Prosecutors say his group also killed 2 people in Canada in a mistaken identity case. Wedding, also known by an alias Public Enemy, as well as James Conrad King, was charged with murder and drug crimes last June. Over in California, Governor Gavin Newsom shared his thoughts on trans athletes in his first podcast episode of This is Gavin Newsom, breaking from many Democrats. The governor was speaking with conservative media commentator and activist Charlie Kirk.
I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand.
Other Democrats have gotten pushback for similar comments, supporting a ban on men who identify as women from women's sports. Governor Newsom also expressed the issue has been a very effective one politically for Republicans. And the word excellent, that's what a 3-time Emmy-nominated sound engineer calls Shen Yun after watching its performance in Las Vegas. NTD is a proud media sponsor of the New York-based performing arts group. Take a look at what the audience members had to say after they were deeply moved to tears.
It was breathtaking. I had tears in my eyes almost the whole time. Changed my life. It was inspirational. I love to hear the story of the divinity of humanity portrayed in dance form.
You can't beat live music, and these guys really knew what they were doing. You can tell that they played that song before. You know, I mean, it was very professional, and it adds excitement to the show. The way they play those instruments and the way the music sounded, it really enhanced the show. All the musicians were top notch. I mean, top notch. You know, I doubt you could get much better.
To see a bunch of people like that on stage at one time in synchronicity, you know, you think about the amount of hours that they put into what they do and practicing together to make it one fluid movement, and to hear the orchestra. I love the strings. It's just so beautiful.
Through classical Chinese dance, music, and storytelling, theatergoers are taken on a journey through 5,000 years of classical Chinese culture and values, which were believed to be inspired by the divine. Shring has 8 companies touring the globe simultaneously, bringing in an all-new production every season.
It's very clever the way they put the live person in there, and then the next thing you know, you're watching them up on the screen, or they're up on the screen and they come down and, you know, they jump out on the stage, and all of a sudden there they are on the stage. But the show is great. Just the spectacle, the colors, the costumes, the dancing, you know, it kept you entertained the entire time. When they came out and did that last performance, I'm going, it's over already? And then I looked at my watch and saw I'd been here 3 hours. I couldn't believe it, you know. So it was great. Excellent show.
I could watch it every day. It was beautiful. It was. I'm a better person now, having that whole experience of being a part of my soul. Now I'm very happy.
Excellent job. Keep doing what you're doing. You're bringing happiness and joy to a whole lot of people on this tour.
NTD News, Las Vegas, Nevada.
When we come back, President Trump is proposing a path to citizenship for South African farmers and their families. There are no details yet on what exactly the plan entails, but we'll have more analysis on that in just a moment. Stay with us.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too, and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month, and we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together? Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org and your gift can be doubled. Thank you.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Welcome back to Newsroom. The United States is pausing all federal funding for South Africa. President Donald Trump announced that freeze today. The president's announcement comes amid accusations that South Africa is discriminating against the country's white minority. The controversy here stems from a new law that allows the government to take private land without compensation. South African officials claim the policy targets unused land and says private property rights are protected. Today, Trump offered a path to citizenship to farmers impacted by the law in a Truth Social post. The U.S. committed more than $320 million in assistance to South Africa in 2024. And joining us to break this down is Daniel DiMartino, a Manhattan Institute fellow. Daniel, thank you for joining us. I want to get your take here, right? On the one hand, Trump wants the largest deportation in American history, but then on the other hand, he's now offering a path to rapid citizenship. Do these conflict?
Well, I think that Trump has always been clear that he wants the best immigrants to come to America. He supported the H-1B visa. I think he's passionate about the South African issue, particularly because it is an issue that probably Democrats have never brought up. It's probably one that Elon Musk brought up to him as a South African himself. And it is true that it is unfair that they're confiscating their land. And I can tell you, in Venezuela, where I come from, they confiscated people's land and people's businesses without compensation. And so I think that allowing people who are entrepreneurial to come here and have skills, if they're willing to, I don't see any problem with that.
I also think it's very interesting that in that post we just saw on the screen there, Trump specifies that farmers' families are also included.
Well, generally, that's how it works with immigration. An immigrant comes and they're allowed to bring in their children and spouses. But I'll say it does not conflict with the mass deportation part, because we're talking here about legal immigration. We're not talking about illegal immigration, right? Which is the whole point. Now, my concern is that the mass deportation program is not going to be successful unless Congress actually funds it and you actually are able to deport people legally. And right now, they're not following the steps to be able to do that.
And we'll get back to that issue in just a moment, but I want to stay on this South African discussion for a second. All right, no land has been taken under the law just yet, but I think a law that allows a government to determine whether they can take away private land, possibly without compensation, raises serious concerns.
Yeah, I mean, remember, in the U.S. Constitution, the government is allowed to take private property, but it must always be at market and fair compensation, right? And I can tell you, it's one of the policies that destroys a society and an economy the most is that of taking private property without compensation, because why would you open a business if the government can take it? And so the consequence is that South Africa, which is a country that's already been destroyed by socialist policies for many years, it's just going to plunge deeper into poverty. Like, this is not going to be good for them to create this business uncertainty.
And as you mentioned, you come from Venezuela. You've witnessed firsthand how these kinds of policies affect a country. Tell us a little more.
Yeah, my parents had a gas station in Venezuela, and the government nationalized that and all the gas and oil industry. My grandpa actually built his own small residential building of 4 floors to rent, and the government took it supposedly to build a hospital that they never built. And then the people who rented in that building, and my grandpa was one of the people who lived in his own building, by the way, they got to keep the apartments for free. And so that's the reality of expropriation. That's the reality of taking people's property. And I don't want America, and I don't want any country really to follow that, because I know what it leads to. It leads to poverty and destruction.
Absolutely. No details yet specifically on what this plan for South African farmers could entail. What do you think it could end up looking like?
I think that there's a long history in South Africa, but also in Zimbabwe and in other neighboring countries of after the colonization ended, after the apartheid ended in the case of South Africa, obviously there was a lot of resentment against whites in those countries. And unfortunately, that was expressed in the form of let's take people's property and use it for ourselves. There's a lot of history of racial discrimination, even in Africa as a whole. People forget that in Uganda, Indians, people who were South Asian, were expelled from the country just on the basis of their race. And the consequence for Uganda was hyperinflation, because turns out the South Asians were a very entrepreneurial, very business-minded group. And when they took their businesses and they put other people to work in them, obviously they did not work the same. And that's unfortunately what happens when the government takes over land. In Venezuela, when they took land, what happened was that farms that used to be productive became empty and destroyed. And that's exactly what would happen in any country where the government takes people's land.
And so do you see how Trump could possibly end up extending this plan to not just farmers in South Africa, but maybe to other groups facing similar challenges in other countries?
I suspect it's not going to happen, and I'm not even sure if this program for South Africans is ever even going to be up and running. And the reason is that you have to remember, Trump issued an executive order on his first day in office suspending the U.S. refugee program. So all of this is just a statement. The policy right now is that no new refugees will be allowed to come into the United States, be whichever nation they're from. And so I think it would be great to rebuild the U.S. refugee program to align with U.S. interests. This could be one of them. I think another U.S. interest could be, for example, rescuing North Koreans, people who have been oppressed by the Chinese Communist Party, people who have been oppressed in Venezuela. I think that could be in U.S. interest. Even Russians escaping Vladimir Putin, right, who may be very intelligent. Remember, being a refugee does not mean you're poor. It just means you're persecuted.
And I think that's a very important point to make. On illegal immigration, I want to ask you this. Trump, as we saw, was asking for more funding during his address to Congress on Tuesday. Now, as you mentioned earlier, he hasn't yet achieved that largest mass deportation in history that he promised. Do you think he has a long road ahead. Is he going to face a lot of obstacles here?
Yes, in reality, this could be done easily because they have the majorities in Congress to pass the budget on reconciliation, just 51 votes in the Senate, right? And the majority of the House. And what he just needs is money, but he doesn't need money counterintuitively for ICE or for Border Patrol. A lot of people think this is all about giving money to ICE and Border Patrol. The reality is that only 1.4 million people in the country are allowed to be deported. Those are the people who have what's called a final deportation order from an immigration judge. Nobody else can be deported unless an immigration judge says so. And so how do you get to the point where you can deport more people who should be? You need immigration judges to emit those orders. The problem is that there's a backlog of 4 million cases to be decided and only 700 judges. And because of the budget cuts that DOJ is imposing and that Trump is seeking, they're actually firing immigration judges. And they're not hiring new ones. I am about to put out a plan with the Manhattan Institute, and I've already posted some of this research on my social media. But if the Trump administration hired just 1,000 more immigration judges, which are federal employees, it would come at a cost of maybe $10 billion over 10 years. And they would be able to clear all the backlog of deportation cases over the first term of the administration. So we're talking about solving all the immigration court backlog and being able to deport many more people if they're willing to.
All right, Daniel, and I think the point you bring up here highlights this contradiction, right? I mean, on the one hand, Trump needs or wants extra funding. Perhaps he needs it in certain cases, as you're suggesting here. But then on the other hand, how does that fit into his overall objective of drastically shrinking spending?
Yeah, this is why this is a trade-off. And that's why when we think about deportations, we need to think, yeah, obviously people who are here illegally did something wrong. But an average deportation costs $65,000 at current prices, and it would probably be much higher than that if you expand deportations. So you really, as a government, need to make the calculation. How much money are you willing to pay to deport a person? Obviously, a criminal should be deported, and even if it costs $65,000 or $100,000, that's okay. But should you deport somebody who has not committed a crime, who's paying taxes, who has lived here for 10 years, who has maybe American-born children or is married to an American, like over 1 million people illegally here are? Should they be deported, and should the taxpayer bear that burden? That's where I think it gets gray, in the gray area, and I think that's why we need immigration reform.
And those questions are questions that I think a lot of people are asking right now. Daniel DiMartino, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Moving on, FBI Director Kash Patel says the Bureau is committed to bringing all American hostages held abroad back home. Patel said yesterday the FBI will work to zero out the number of Americans detained or held hostage in foreign countries.
Just imagine if one of yours was taken. What would you do, and what would you expect of the United States government to do to return them to you? And the simple answer from this administration, from President Trump, from Secretary Rubio, from Adam and Dustin, and so many others in the intelligence community is we will do everything. This is a top priority. And so my singular promise to you in this community is that I will do everything as your director of the FBI to marshal the resources necessary to make sure that no other American family feels that pain.
During a State Department ceremony honoring the hostage community and their families. The Trump administration is trying to secure the release of the remaining American hostages still being held by Hamas terrorists. The government is also working to bring home Americans from other countries, including Russia and Venezuela. Last month, an American school teacher jailed in Russia on drug charges, Mark Fogel, returned home as part of a prisoner swap in Moscow. Saudi Arabia says it welcomes the chance to host a meeting between the U.S. and Ukraine. This comes after the two countries said they're planning to hold talks in the Middle East next week. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he'll be traveling to Saudi Arabia on Monday for a meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince and talks with U.S. officials. The U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Steve Witkoff, confirmed the trip, saying the discussions aim to reach a deal to end the 3-year war with Russia. According to the Saudi Foreign Ministry, the talks will be held in the city of Jeddah. The kingdom says it'll continue to do its best to help end the conflict. Now, in February, Saudi Arabia hosted a meeting between U.S. and Russian officials. Ukraine was not included in those talks. President Trump says that he's strongly considering imposing more sanctions on Russia. That's over its continued attacks on Ukraine. This morning, Trump posted that he's strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire is reached. He also told Russia and Ukraine to come to the table and start talks before it's too late. Treasury Secretary Bessent previously said the U.S. won't hesitate to impose sanctions on Russian energy if it helps lead to a ceasefire. And the president also said yesterday that he's considering revoking protected status for Ukrainians here in the U.S. This would affect roughly 240,000 Ukrainians who came to the country after fleeing the war. The announcement is leading to fears of deportation among some. Now, Trump insisted that the final decision is yet to be made, saying Ukrainians have gone through a lot in the last 3 years. And moving on, Britain and Japan are seeking closer economic and trade ties amid U.S. tariff threats. The UK's foreign ministry says Japan should ramp up economic pressure on Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine says it received the first set of funds from the proceeds of frozen Russian assets. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson reports.
British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said on Friday that Japan could help Ukraine by ramping up economic pressure on Russia. This during a meeting with his Japanese counterpart in Tokyo.
Putin's illegal war in Ukraine was a major focus. We both want to see this war brought to a lasting end. Europe is stepping up, but Japan can help too, including on ramping up economic pressure on Putin.
Lammy added that Japan and the UK have a shared interest in maintaining a rules-based world order, something his Japanese counterpart agreed to.
We agreed that Japan and the UK will continue to exchange views towards achieving a just and lasting peace in Ukraine.
Lammy said both the UK and Japan have an interest in maintaining their friendship. Particularly, he said, at a time where economic growth and security are closely linked. Japan has the fourth largest economy in the world, while Britain the sixth. British Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds said the UK and Japan agree international free trade is crucial.
Economic security is national security. That is why the UK and Japan have agreed to enhance our economic security partnership. Our close relationship means that we can be important partners for each other on this. In fact, at this time, we must be.
Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said on Friday that Ukraine received a first package of funds worth about $1 billion from Britain. This was secured by the proceeds of frozen Russian assets. He said the funds will go towards strengthening Ukraine's defense capabilities and benefiting the country. After Shmyhal's announcement, an ally of Putin said Britain would have to return the money to Moscow. The Speaker of Russia's lower house of parliament called it an illegal gift to Ukraine that violates the principle of property rights. Turning to Europe, the EU's top representatives debriefed partner countries on Thursday's emergency summit. The 27 EU leaders signed off on a move to loosen budget restrictions so that willing EU countries can increase their military spending. This could free up around $705 billion. Following the debrief, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hailed this as a historic step forward, saying closer collaboration and a combined industrial base was vital. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
European Union leaders are discussing plans to boost defense spending. This would align with President Trump's agenda to have the EU take a bigger stake in its own defense. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
In a joint statement on Thursday, 26 of 27 EU member states pledged to increase defense spending and maintain strong support for Ukraine. EU leaders backed a European Commission proposal allowing more fiscal flexibility for defense. They also discussed a plan to jointly borrow up to about $162 billion to strengthen their militaries. The new defense spending aligns with Trump's request for Europe. Some EU member states also said that they hope this spending can be carried out within a framework of cooperation with Trump's new peace plan for Ukraine. However, EU leaders have recently intensified their stance against Russia, accusing the country of being a direct threat to European nations and engaging in election interference. Meanwhile, a former official with the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Benoît Paré, says Macron's speech on Wednesday marks a turning point in French diplomacy.
He somehow raised the bar higher in terms of the perception of the threat from Russia. So this is some kind of an unprecedented step. I don't think he had ever been so clear about the idea of a threat, direct threat coming from Russia.
EU leaders this week have discussed the possibility of deploying peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. Some countries, including France, Italy, and UK, are willing to do it. However, Russia didn't agree to such a proposal, saying this would lead to an extremely dangerous escalation.
I mean, President Trump right now is on a course not to put boots on the ground, but to have a ceasefire and to have peace agreement in Ukraine. This is what President Trump stands for as of now. Clearly, he said so repeatedly. But the European Union leaders, they are on an opposite path. They do not want peace at any cost. They want peace at Ukraine's conditions and not at Russia's conditions.
Zelensky said on Thursday that US and Ukrainian officials will meet next week to discuss a peace plan. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban spoke to the media today after 26 European Union leaders pledged continued support for Ukraine. An ally of President Trump, Orban faces elections in 2026, and here's what he had to say earlier today.
If a war has been going on for 3 years in 26 European states, and the U.S. jointly supported Ukraine, and still the Russians are winning on the front line, and now the U.S. quits, financing the war, why would the other 26 member states have a chance to take this war to the end? This is a question to which there is no answer. So simply, there is no rational basis for the standpoint of the 26 European states.
Orban has long been critical of the war and has refused to send weapons to Ukraine since the start of the conflict. The Hungarian leader reiterated that EU membership for Ukraine would come down to Hungary's approval. Kyiv considers EU membership crucial to safeguarding Ukraine's future against potential Russian aggression. Ukraine is also seeking NATO membership in an effort to deter Moscow. Coming up next, a 100-year-old British woman rides her horse in the English countryside. She says staying in the saddle beats walking. We'll be right back.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50-enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
She's in quite a perilous situation, but she's completely strong and serene, and she's actually meditating. It was very, very well liked because no matter what culture or what sort of walk of life you're from, I think people, they see it and they immediately understand what that energy, what that message is, and they're drawn to it because everybody kind of needs a little bit of that in their own life, of, you know, the steadfast calmness and something to hold on to. It's definitely an inner peace in the midst of something very chaotic, and for a lot of people right now, the whole world is very, very chaotic, so I guess that's another reason why so many people are very drawn to this.
In England, a 100-year-old rider is still getting back up on that horse. In fact, she says that riding beats walking. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the centenarian in the saddle.
Elizabeth Breton still likes to take a trot down country roads. She turned 100 late last year, but she still enjoys a canter around the Gloucestershire countryside.
Well, I walk so slowly it doesn't do any good.
In fact, at her age, traveling by horse is better than by foot.
I feel at home. And I feel the horse right up through my body. You know, my seat bones are not up my back. And I think it makes my back move so that keeps me. Well, that's why I've lived so long. I've absolutely no doubt whatever.
This being England, she can't always count on the weather to be warm and sunny, but a little bit of rain is fine for both the horse and rider.
Well, rain's better than wind. And horses hate wind.
Breton plans to keep riding for as long as she's able to sit in the saddle. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And staying on humans and their adored pets, 6-year-old Freddie Osborne became the youngest entrant and winner at the annual Crufts competition when his dog Penny triumphed in the first-class veteran category. Osborne and Penny, who's a smooth fox terrier, won their ribbon on the first day of the annual dog competition. It runs until March 9th at the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, England.
I'm 6 years old and I've won Crufts. Her name's Penny, and I love about her that she is really good. By the way, you get there, today.
We're proud of what he's achieved, but also for us as a family, it's about the dogs, it's about the breed. It's a vulnerable breed, the Smooth Fox Terrier, and for us, we just want to try and promote the breed and make people aware of it. Back in the 1920s, 1930s, it was UK's most popular dog, and since then it's been in decline really, other breeds taking preference. So we just want to showcase the dog as a family with Freddie's help and just try and promote them to make more people aware of them, and hopefully people have a Smooth Fox Terrier.
Crufts was established in 1891 and is one of the largest dog shows in the entire world. All right, up next, we are expecting President Trump's speech at the White House Digital Summit in the next hour. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I woun't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98, but it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free.
From all of us here at MyPillow,
thanks, America!
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. President Donald Trump is hosting the White House Digital Asset Summer this afternoon, where cryptocurrency titans gather to discuss how to make America the crypto capital of the world. Columbia University loses $400 million of grants and contracts. The Trump administration accuses the Ivy League institution of inaction amid the harassment of Jewish students. Success for Starlink. It's been granted permission to use higher-powered direct-to-cell connectivity, meaning faster and more reliable services for consumers and 911 calls. The Federal Reserve is in no rush to cut interest rates. Fed Chair Jerome Powell reports the latest data at the University of Chicago Monetary Policy Forum. Democrats and Republicans are divided over government funding and have 1 week to avoid a shutdown. NTD Washington correspondent Luis Martinez brings us more. After a Shenyun performance in Vegas, we hear what a 3-time Emmy-nominated sound engineer and musician has to say about the show.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump touted job numbers in the Oval Office and mentioned a reciprocal tariff on Canada as early as today. NTD's correspondent Iris Tao brings us more from the White House.
Earlier this morning, President Trump, speaking from the Oval Office, touted the latest jobs numbers, calling what he is referring to as a manufacturing turnaround. He says in the last month alone, there were 10,000 new jobs created in the manufacturing industry, adding that 9,000 of them came from the auto industry. Watch.
We've not only stopped that manufacturing collapse, but we've begun to rapidly reverse it and get major gains. We created 10,000 manufacturing jobs in February alone. That hasn't happened in a long time.
And President Trump also previews more actions to come as early as today. He says he's going to slap reciprocal tariffs on Canadian lumber and dairy products as soon as today or early next week. And when asked about recent changes to his tariffs policy as well as concerns about market instability, and President Trump says that there could be a little bit of disturbance, but tariffs would always just be on and off and there will be changes. Much.
You have a fender made in Canada, you have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it.
And just the day before, President Trump announced that he's pausing most tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods covered by USMCA, and that's amid his push to bring these companies to the U.S. So inside the Oval Office, President Trump again said that he believes Ukraine does not have the cards, while adding today that he believes Russia has all the cards. He also says that he's finding it more difficult to deal with Ukraine as he doesn't know if Ukraine actually wants to settle. Watch.
You have a fender made in Canada, you have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it.
And this morning, President Trump issued a warning to Russia, saying that he's considering banking sanctions as well as tariffs on the country as he's pushing for the two countries to come together for a ceasefire deal. And President Trump says he wants to help Ukraine and want to stop people from dying. And then next week, Ukrainian and U.S. officials will meet in Saudi Arabia. So at 3 p.m. Eastern time this afternoon, President Trump is expected to hold the first White House cryptocurrency summit hearing from industry leaders. And And just earlier, right now, actually, I asked the White House crypto czar about how the administration plans to balance the industry's desire for deregulation with the need for the administration to protect American consumers from volatility as well as fraud in that industry. And here's what he told me. Watch.
If we make the rules clear to them, I think they will abide. And if they still break the rules, and I'm talking about bad actors, not the good ones, then they'll be punished. There should be punishments for bad actors. But I think there's many more good actors than bad actors, and they need to be enabled. The innovation needs to be enabled.
And just the day before, President Trump announced the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a separate U.S. stockpile of digital assets. But the crypto czar told us that it does not mean the administration is encouraging everyday Americans to all invest in a cryptocurrency, saying that if you are a retiree relying on a fixed income, it might not be a good idea to invest in such a volatile currency. Back to you.
We're going to stay on that. President Trump did establish that strategic Bitcoin reserve and a stockpile of other digital assets through an executive order yesterday, and he's hosting the first White House Crypto Summit today. We're going to keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, joining us now is Lydia Mashburn-Newman, Managing Director of Monetary Economics for the American Institute for Economic Research. Lydia, thank you for joining us. According to that executive order, the U.S. is never going to sell its Bitcoin. So what's the advantage here of owning it?
Yeah, so it seems to be, if you read the executive order carefully, it's starting out with just trying to get a good handle on the digital assets that the US government owns. They have acquired quite a number of Bitcoin and other digital assets through either criminal asset forfeiture or civil asset forfeiture. And so they own about 200,000 Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies. And so one element of this is that they're trying to get some good accounting and some good auditing of the actual holdings. And then there are the larger thinking and monetary thinking of what does the overall U.S. reserve assets look like. We hold a number of foreign currencies as reserves, as well as quite a bit of gold as reserves. And so it's looking like there might be sort of a push toward having Bitcoin almost as a form of digital gold in the U.S. government's asset holdings.
Now, speaking of that, that order does call Bitcoin digital gold. So my question here is, why don't they just sell that Bitcoin for actual gold?
That is a good question. I think partly it's it seems like they don't have a full grasp of how much Bitcoin they actually have and how it's valued. And they also want to be strategic about how they would maybe either acquire, and they're going to look into how they would acquire more gold. Holding it seems to be maybe some interests within the Trump administration may acknowledge that Bitcoin was crafted, unlike a lot of other cryptocurrencies, to be a sort of a stable store of value, and was designed, if you read the original white paper, was designed to almost be sort of digital native gold. And so they could be thinking long term that if we're going to be moving towards a more digital first world, what is the digital native currency that world will be running on? So those factors could be coming into play. And so it will be interesting to see how the Treasury Secretary and the Commerce Secretary, who've been instructed to look into this in more detail, what details they will provide as they look into the U.S. government holdings of Bitcoin.
Michael Saylor, who's a prominent Bitcoin investor, he's invited to the White House. And here's a quote from him I want to read to you, Lydia. He said, the order is a, quote, turning point in the financial and geopolitical landscape of the 21st century. Now, you kind of touched on that already, but explain to us more. What does he mean here?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to that point about sort of a digital native currency. We have a world that is increasingly moving into digital commerce, and we're transferring value across the interwebs, and not just through physical means. And so what is the best form of currency and payments mechanism to do that? And Michael Saylor has been very clear that he thinks that asset that we will use to transfer that value is Bitcoin. And there are some things about Bitcoin that make it unique and maybe perhaps best suited to play the role as sort of the payments rails and foundational money in a digital first economy across the globe. And so I think you're seeing some of that play out, and I'm sure he's probably making points similar to that at today's summit.
And building off of that, one of the cryptocurrencies that's included is the strategic stockpile, is Cardano. Here's another quote from its founder yesterday. The reason why cryptocurrencies exist is so that we no longer need governments. We can transcend them. Okay, is that a common sentiment in the cryptocurrency community?
So it is true that the cryptocurrencies, especially starting with Bitcoin, it was meant to be something that was decentralized and nothing that could be controlled by a central player, of which a government would be considered a centralized system and centralized player. And so there is very much within the crypto community, there's been its development has been around being decentralized and being outside of government in some aspects. Other digital assets or digital tokens have taken actually a more centralized approach. So the marketplace has a lot of different types of currencies. And so when you look at, say, something like XRP, that is considered to be included in the strategic asset stock, the US digital asset stockpile, not the Bitcoin reserve, because there's a distinction between those. But in the stockpile, XRP is very different than Bitcoin in that it has a single issuer, whereas Bitcoin is issued in a very decentralized way through the cryptography of the protocol. And so there are definitely distinctions to be made between different digital crypto assets or securities or tokens. Each one of those things is different. And so it's very important to keep those distinctions clearly in mind, especially with the government moving into these spaces. So there is a little, it seems a bit unusual to have government being interested in getting so involved when the origins of crypto writ large was really about being more decentralized and somewhat away from government.
And Lydia, that's what I want to focus on here, the idea of these decentralized options. I mean, Trump, we've seen him, he's really almost upending the federal government at this point, trying to really shrink it down. Do you think that his crypto-friendly policies are indeed an effort from him to establish some sort of alternative decentralized financial system?
I think that he has a number of tech forward looking folks that are involved with his administration, and he is very keen to listen to those advisors. And it does seem that there is this push towards what does the future of commerce and the global economy look like. And so it really is an interesting question when you see an administration come in so moving as quickly as he is towards changes in many areas, not just within the financial sector space. It will be interesting to see how all of this plays out. The financial system writ large is really relies heavily on a lot of legacy systems. And so just in terms of a technological modernization, I could see these things being quite useful. The push for moving towards a more sort of web native, not just digital native, but internet native types of technology. So there is there's definitely a tech forward approach in this administration that one has not seen in government in a while, or government hardly at all, because it's not generally where government is its strengths. The government's strength is not typically in the innovation, leading the charge space. So the next few months and the rest of this administration will certainly be very interesting to watch on the crypto front as well as on other fronts.
Absolutely. And Lydia, I think the fact here that the US could already have billions of dollars worth of forfeit digital currency suggests that it really is used for illegal activity. And we saw that the previous administration also often characterized Bitcoin this way. So as the current administration, mainstreams digital currency, is there a responsibility here for them to also target its illicit uses?
Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing about most digital assets and currencies is that while they can facilitate criminal activity, they're actually almost more traceable than, say, cash. And so you actually see law enforcement, if you dig into some of the details, law enforcement has actually really enjoyed things like Bitcoin, because even though you can be pseudonymous on the platform, there are still entry points onto and off of these chains that actually leave a very significant paper trail. And so even though they have facilitated illicit activity, so too has the US dollar. In fact, the US dollar itself is one of the largest facilitators of criminal activity. So, but these digital assets and digital tokens and currencies, they are more traceable than US cash. And so they've actually been able to help identify bad actors writ large. So I think the jury's still out, and maybe the rhetoric is a little too critical of them, and we haven't heard enough about how they've actually been beneficial in reining in some illicit activity.
Lydia, before we go here, as an expert in this field, what are you most excited to see in the upcoming months?
I think when it comes to crypto, one of the things I would say, and thinking about the summit in particular today, is we have Bitcoin as a potential currency and reserve asset, which is an interesting phenomenon in itself. But one of the things that's really been needed over the past several years is regulatory clarity for the rest of the crypto industry, defining what counts as a digital security, what does a crypto token mean. And I think what I'm hoping to see out of the summit and in the weeks and months ahead, and with some work at the Securities and Exchange Commission, is some clarity on that side of the crypto marketplace. Because one of the key things I think here is that you could be saying that these companies are interested in getting government handouts by getting into this crypto stockpile. But really what they need is a government hands-off so that they could be allowed to innovate and actually satisfy new market interests in all the areas where digital assets and tokens and currencies can actually benefit commerce and help the global marketplace and the U.S. marketplace going forward.
Absolutely. Lydia Mashburn-Newman, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
The Trump administration has canceled $400 million worth of grants and contracts to Columbia University. The General Services Administration cited what it called inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. The canceled funds will come out of $5 billion in grants committed to Columbia. The GSA made the joint statement with the Departments of Justice, Education, and Health and Human Services. Now, Columbia has been one of a handful of universities at the center of college protests demanding an end to American support for Israel, and expressing support for Columbia has previously said it made efforts to tackle anti-Semitism. It was not immediately clear which grants and contracts were being cut, though. And success for Starlink, its direct-to-cell internet service has been granted permission to operate at higher power, which it says will allow faster and more reliable news services for consumers across the country. The Federal Communications Commission decided to waive a rule that limited power levels. SpaceX wants to operate at what's called a higher power flux density, which the company says will avoid clashes with adjacent band networks. This is to make connectivity faster and more reliable for consumers, as well as 911 emergency calls in remote locations. T-Mobile supported the move, providing its own analysis that indicated the higher power level would not cause interference to terrestrial networks, such as that of T-Mobile. The FCC granted the waiver on the condition that SpaceX address any harmful interference if it occurs. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell provided an update on the latest economic data at the University of Chicago Monetary Policy Forum. Today's numbers come as the Trump administration pursues its America First policy.
Despite elevated levels of uncertainty, the U.S. economy continues to be in a good place. The labor market is solid, and inflation has moved closer to our 2% longer-run goal. At the Fed, we are intently focused on our dual mandate goals given to us by Congress: maximum employment and stable prices. Turning to the recent data, the economy has been growing at a solid pace. GDP expanded at a 2.3% annual rate in the fourth quarter of last year, extending a period of consistent growth that has been supported by resilient consumer spending. Recent indicators point to a possible moderation in consumer spending relative to the rapid growth over the second half of 2024. Further, recent surveys of households and businesses point to heightened uncertainty about the economic outlook. It remains to be seen how these developments might affect future spending and investment. Sentiment readings have not been a good predictor of consumption growth in recent years. We continue to carefully monitor a variety of indicators of household and business spending. Turning to the labor market, many indicators show that the labor market is solid and broadly in balance. The jobs report released this morning showed employers added 151,000 jobs to payrolls in February, and the unemployment rate ticked up 0.1 to 4.1% last month. Smoothing over the month-to-month volatility, since September, employers have added a solid 200,000 jobs a month on average. The unemployment rate remains low and has held in a narrow range between 3.9% and 4.2% over the past year.
Powell added that the U.S. Central Bank will be in no rush to cut any interest rates while it waits for the impact of Trump's policies on the economy. President Trump has announced a series of moves, including steep import tariffs on major trading partners, Mexico and Canada. Trump also doubled tariffs on imports from China. Now, the Fed is expected to hold its benchmark interest rate steady between 4.25% and 4.5% at its March 18th meeting. Policymakers will also issue new economic projections. Up next, President Trump just signed executive orders to end taxpayer-funded student loan forgiveness. And Democrats and Republicans are divided over government funding and have 1 week to avoid a shutdown. NTD Washington correspondent Luis Martinez will have more. We'll be right back after this break.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
I tell my son, I love you every single day.
I love you.
Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Welcome back to Newsroom. President Trump just signed another batch of executive orders moments ago. Here's a playback of that.
It's 12 stadiums, the best players in the world, the best teams in the world. America will welcome the world. There will be millions of people coming, Mr. President, millions of people. The economic impact is $40 billion between now and next year. We will create 200,000 jobs for these two World Cups, and more than that, we will give joy and happiness to the entire world, and this is priceless, definitely. So thank you, Mr. President, for setting up this task force, because it is important that everyone that comes to America feels safe, feels welcome, and that's why it's important that the government puts together this White House task force chaired by the president himself. It shows the importance of the FIFA World Cups, I should say, because there are many, many topics to deal with, of course, and we want everyone who comes to America and who goes to watch one of these games. We have 10 million tickets for sale. It's like 3 Super Bowls every day for 1 month. That everyone that goes feels safe, feels happy, and feels that we are doing something special. So we're here to create and to make the best show on the planet ever, and we'll do it together, Mr. President.
Oh, that's great. I love what he said, like 3 Super Bowls a day for a month. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's really amazing when you think of it. I've never heard that expression. That's a lot. When, when we made this, it was made during my term, my first term, and it was so sad because I said, can you imagine I'm not going to be president? And that's too bad. And then what happened is they rigged the election and I became president. So that was a good thing. That was a good thing. That was quite an achievement for both of us. So I'll be president during the World Cup and during the Olympics, which we were very instrumental in getting. And then, of course, we have our 250th birthday, too, and of that I wasn't instrumental. That just happened to fall on the same time. So we have those 3 big events. You don't get very much bigger than that, the Olympics, the World Cup, and number 250. And it's a great honor, but I appreciate your selecting us. And we were selected a long time ago, though, during the term, during my first term. And it's an honor to be with you, Johnny. Been my friend for a long time.
Absolutely.
He's a great
Thank
gentleman.
You so much.
Okay, I'll sign this, and that makes it official, right?
That makes it official, yes.
That's good.
Here we are. Then we have to start working.
Can you talk a little bit about the halftime show that you anticipate for the championship? Will it be like the Super Bowl halftime show, or better?
Well, the Super Bowl has around 100 million viewers or 150 million viewers. The World Cup final has 2 billion viewers. So we have to make it 20 times better and 20 times bigger than the Super Bowl.
I think it'll be better. I think it will be better.
Any idea the economic impact of this in all these cities around the country? It's got to be huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It's around 40 billion in only the United States, 40 billion US dollars, the economic impact, 200,000 jobs created. It's so per city you can divide by 11, and you know a little bit what each city gets, more or less. Some cities get more, others get less. But we'll have 10 million tourists coming, some with tickets, others without tickets, who just want to be here during these World Cups.
What team is favored now, if there's such a thing? I mean, do they have a team like so many of these great famous teams? What team seems to be favored?
Well, on the club one, which takes place this year, of course, Real Madrid, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, the Germans, Paris Saint-Germain, the French. The big ones are always there, and these clubs are multinationals. They have players from all countries.
They always seem to be there, right?
They are always there.
Those great teams.
They are always there, yeah. And then next year, Argentina, Brazil,
right.
England, Germany, Spain.
It's going to be great.
So it will be great.
Any questions for Johnny?
US is coming up. US is coming. Watch the US. Some very, very good players playing in Europe, but we need to bring them back here to play here.
So can the US win?
The US can win, yes, with the public behind.
See?
They play in some of the top teams.
He knows.
Yeah. They play in some of the top teams.
There's a shot, right?
Yeah, there is a shot. Absolutely, yes.
That's great. Well, we'll hold that up for you guys. Brian, did you have another question?
Well, I was just going to say, this continues your pursuit to bring America back in every aspect, the economy, world peace, sports now, which is awesome. I want to preview a little bit of the Olympics. I know you talked about that before.
Well, I'm just very happy to have done it. I mean, I didn't think this was going to happen. I said, I'll be sitting there, but not as president. So I was, very honored. Actually, Johnny reminded me, called me up very early on. He said, you're going to be president during this whole thing after we won. So it's a great honor for our country to have it, actually. It's a big deal. It's, I don't know which is bigger, the Olympics or the World Cup. What is the story on that? Can I ask you that question?
The World Cup is much bigger than the Olympics. Come on. and it's in the whole country. Huh?
Yeah,
the Olympics
we've got them
city.
both.
Mr. President, it's a long way off, Mr. President, but do you foresee yourself attending some matches or a match?
Oh, yeah, sure. I would like to. I'd like to go to certainly more than one.
Yes.
We'll be making the rounds. It's a period of a month.
Yeah.
And it's really top of the line. It's one of the great events, maybe one of the great events of anywhere in the world.
Yes.
Mr. President, since you last spoke about it yesterday, some details have come out about your cabinet meeting with Elon Musk and some clashes potentially between Secretary Rubio and Secretary.
No clash. I was there. You're just a troublemaker. And you're not supposed to be asking that question because we're talking about the World Cup. Elon gets along great with Marco, and they're both doing a fantastic job. There is no clash.
Mr. President, bottom line.
Who are you with? Who are you with?
NBC.
Oh, no wonder. That's enough.
Who
NBC.
has more authority, Elon Musk or the cabinet secretary?
Any other questions about the World Cup?
Can we unveil the trophy, maybe?
I'd love to do
because this is something special. So today is 100 days to go for a new competition that we created together. The FIFA Club World Cup, the best clubs in the world with the best players in the world. So we can show this is a unique trophy. This is the trophy, but it's not finished because it's unlike any other trophy. There is a key.
Oh, wow.
There is no other sports trophy like that.
Oh, that is good. Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to be kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wait.
Wow. That's one I understand.
And that's the trophy.
That is something, huh?
We got to win now, Mr. President.
This is a good one.
That's beautiful.
Inter Miami and Seattle Sounders play
never seen
for this
anything
trophy.
like that.
It is it's a trophy of the future.
Yeah.
It represents the past, the future, everything, the present.
And this will be at the White House for a little while.
Yes.
So if anybody needs a picture or anything, you can take it. But this is.
If you like it, Mr. President, it can stay here just on the 13th of July. You should take it with me.
Let's leave it here.
To the stadium to give it to the winners. They can take a picture, then we bring it back here after the picture.
Let's do that. We'll leave it here. We'll have it in the White House quite a bit.
Excellent.
It travels a little bit also, but I appreciate it. That's good. And I know this can definitely stay, right? Anyway, thank you, Johnny, very much.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
On the cabinet meeting, sir, just on the cabinet meeting, you said Musk will play an advisory role, Doge will play.
We're talking about FIFA. Thank you very
About
much.
the World Cup, Mr. President, you're having.
And they're both great guys. And by the way, they both get along fantastically well. Marco has done unbelievably as Secretary of State, and Elon is a very unique guy who's done a fantastic job.
Do you think he needs to be reined in, Mr.
Enough. It's FIFA. Is this a FIFA question?
How do you see the World Cup playing out with the tensions you have with Canada and Mexico?
Oh, I think it's going to make it more exciting. Tension's a good thing.
Even for the World Cup?
Yeah, I think so. I think it makes it much more exciting.
Sir, the entire committee is here for FIFA with Johnny?
Please come up.
Would you like them to come up and take a picture?
Please, Johnny, come on. Get them up. That's great.
Mr. President, what type of enhanced security do you anticipate having for all of these big events
I'll let you.
that are happening over the course of the next year?
I'll let Christy answer that question.
Oh, answer what question?
Go ahead. Security.
The security for this event will be run by the Department of Homeland Security. So we are signing today this document that will say that we will form task forces and partnerships. We'll have incident command centers in these 11 cities that will partner all the agencies and departments at the federal. We'll have some worldwide partners as well, as long
Global
as,
level.
yes, it'll be under our umbrella, and we'll help facilitate that, but also working with our local law enforcement is incredibly powerful. So streamlining those communications, it'll be a wonderful event, and everybody will be safe and fun.
We better be, right?
And this is the official ball
Thank you very
with your
much.
name.
Thank you. Ooh, that's nice. I would give it to Christy, except it has my name on it.
We have another one for
her.
Of course, of course.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Is that going to be the ball?
That's the official match ball.
This will be what it will look like, the ball?
Yes.
When they play?
When they play.
Wow, that's
Yes.
great.
Yes, nobody has played yet.
That's great. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Johnny, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, there, rowdy meeting in the Oval Office talking about FIFA World Cup. Probably have more on that when the time comes nearer to that. But moving on for now, Republican and Democratic lawmakers are divided over their party's agenda, and Congress has 1 week to avoid a government shutdown. NTD's Washington correspondent Luis Martinez walks us through what is happening in our nation's capital right now.
Because I did disrupt. And I did so because the president indicated that he had a mandate. And I wanted him to know that he didn't have a mandate.
10 Democrats broke party line and joined Republicans to vote to censure Congressman Al Green, who disrupted the president's speech to a joint session of Congress last Tuesday.
You know what? I don't mind being one of 10 Democrats who said, no, there's a deeper principle at stake here, which is reverence for this institution.
Democratic lawmakers have publicly admitted to divisions within the House Democratic Conference.
So, look, I'm not going to lie. Don't think anybody looked good on Tuesday night. It's a very challenging situation. The House of Representatives is a representative body. Both caucuses have many people with different feelings.
And some Republican lawmakers are pushing back against the president's agenda, in particular against tariffs and government spending cuts.
We want to make sure that we're doing things with a scalpel and not a sledgehammer. I've had concerns with what happened last week when the CDC saw this across-the-board cut, and it impacted the 9/11 first responders in my district. Because
almost every industry in Kentucky has come to me and said it will hurt our industry and push up prices of homes, cars. And so I'm going to continue to argue against tariffs. I hope they'll not go in place, and I hope they won't cause a recession. But already they're talking about exemptions because even the people for them acknowledge that there are real problems with tariffs.
Divisions will have to be put aside if Congress hopes to avoid a government shutdown on March 14th, when government funding expires. Republicans control Congress and plan on putting a continuing resolution to a vote on the House floor next week.
I believe we'll pass it along the party lines, but I think every Democrat should vote for the CR. It is a fundamental responsibility we have to fund the government, and a clean CR with a few minor anomalies is not something that they should vote against, so we'll see what they do.
A year-long continuing resolution is inconsistent with the Bipartisan Fiscal Responsibility Act, and so if Republicans decide to take this approach, as Speaker Johnson indicated, it's his expectation that Republicans are going it alone.
Next week, the Senate is expected to vote on the confirmation of Lori Chavez de Remer to be the next Labor Secretary. It is expected that she will be confirmed on a party line vote. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Up next, we are expecting President Trump's speech at the White House Digital Summit. Stay with us.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Federal investigators have released new findings on the deadly plane crash in Northeast Philadelphia that killed 7 people and injured 24 back in January. The National Transportation Safety Board says the cockpit voice recorder was not working on the medical transport plane that crashed. Now, according to the preliminary report, the recorder likely had not functioned for years. Investigators confirmed the crew made no distress calls to air traffic control before the Learjet 55 went down. The plane crashed into a residential and commercial area just 1 minute after taking off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, erupting into a fireball. The report states the recorder was found 8 feet underground, damaged and exposed to liquids. Despite cleaning and repairs, the 30-minute tape had no audio from the flight. A ground warning system that may have flight data is still under review. The plane was transporting 11-year-old Valentina Guzman Murillo and her mother back to Mexico after medical treatment. Newly released text messages reveal panicked exchanges between the 2 surviving roommates in the University of Idaho murders case. 4 students were brutally killed in 2022 at an off-campus home in Moscow. According to newly released court documents, one resident texted a friend upstairs asking, quote, "What's going on?" The friend did not respond, but the resident was able to reach her downstairs roommate, who replied, quote, "I'm freaking out." The texts describe a masked man dressed in black inside their house around the time police believe the attacks took place. Around 4:30 a.m., one roommate called or texted each of the stabbing victims, but received no response. A 911 call wasn't made for over 7 hours. Prosecutors say this timeline will be crucial in their case against suspect Brian Koberger. Britain and Japan are seeking closer economic and trade ties amid U.S. tariff threats. The UK's foreign secretary says Japan should ramp up economic pressure on Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine says it received the first set of funds from the proceeds of frozen Russian assets. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson reports.
British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said on Friday that Japan could help Ukraine by ramping up economic pressure on Russia. This during a meeting with his Japanese counterpart in Tokyo.
Putin's illegal war in Ukraine was a major focus. We both want to see this war brought to a lasting end. Europe is stepping up, but Japan can help too, including on ramping up economic pressure on Putin.
Lammy added that Japan and the UK have a shared interest in maintaining a rules-based world order, something his Japanese counterpart agreed to.
We agreed that Japan and the UK will continue to exchange views towards achieving a just and lasting peace in Ukraine.
Lammy said both the UK and Japan have an interest in maintaining their friendship. Particularly, he said, at a time where economic growth and security are closely linked. Japan has the 4th largest economy in the world, while Britain the 6th. British Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds said the UK and Japan agree international free trade is crucial.
Economic security is national security. That is why the UK and Japan have agreed to enhance our economic security partnership. Our close relationship means that we can be important partners for each other on this. In fact, at this time, we must be.
Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said on Friday that Ukraine received a first package of funds worth about $1 billion from Britain. This was secured by the proceeds of frozen Russian assets. He said the funds will go towards strengthening Ukraine's defense capabilities and benefiting the country. After Shmyhal's announcement, an ally of Putin said Britain would have to return the money to Moscow. The Speaker of Russia's lower house of parliament called it an illegal gift to Ukraine that violates the principle of property rights. Turning to Europe, the EU's top representatives debriefed partner countries on Thursday's emergency summit. The 27 EU leaders signed off on a move to loosen budget restrictions so that willing EU countries can increase their military spending. This could free up around $705 billion. Following the debrief, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hailed this as a historic step forward, saying closer collaboration and a combined industrial base was vital. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
President Trump is now speaking at the White House Digital Assets Summit. Let's tune into that.
Johnny here from World Cup. I want to thank you for this election. And they just had a presentation in the Oval Office, and I thought this was such a beautiful, this is the trophy. This is the big deal. The World Cup is the biggest sporting event, and Gianni Infantino is my friend for a long time, and during my first term, we worked out a deal to get the World Cup, and then because of lots of interesting things that happened, I ended up being president. Wanted to shut up. I was always disappointed. I wasn't going to make it. I was going to serve 8 straight. Instead, we did it the hard way, but maybe the more important way. So I will be with you as president, Johnny. So maybe you could just say a few words and show how beautiful the World Cup trophy is. Thank you. Yeah, sure, please. Yeah.
The famous key.
That's a great key.
You want to open it, President? Or
Well, you go ahead. I trust you.
So this is the new trophy of a new competition. It's called the FIFA Club World Cup. The 32 best clubs in the world with the absolutely best players in the world. And for the first time in history, this competition takes place in the United States. Opening game on the 14th of June.
Right.
Obviously in Miami. Final on the 13th of July this year in New York, New Jersey. But it's not that. The trophy is special because it is a key, and because, as you can see, if I manage to do that, yes, it's a bit tricky. It's like that. So this is a trophy. It is a trophy which represents, and that's why I think it's interesting to show this trophy exactly in this forum, because it represents the past, but it's also projected to the future. There is no other sports trophy which looks like that. It has engraved the history of the game, of soccer or football as we call it, the participating teams of the first edition, the stadiums, the beautiful stadiums in 11 cities in the United States of America where this competition will take place. So at the same time, past, present, and projected to the future. And if I may, President, say another 2 words, and then I let you work. I would like to congratulate the President and the administration for not only for the World Cup, the Club World Cup, the World Cup, and the great work done, but also for this initiative that you are speaking about here. If I may add something in this respect, I'm not an expert at all, but FIFA, as you know, is a brand which is globally known, a very strong brand. The soccer economy in the world is worth around 270 billion a year. 70% of that, Mr. President, is in Europe. So imagine the potential that there is around the world only in soccer if we develop it. And so FIFA is very, very interested under my presidency to develop a FIFA coin, to do it from here, from America, and to conquer the 5 billion soccer fans in the world. So if there is anyone here who is interested to team up with FIFA, here we are together with the United States of America, and we'll conquer the world of soccer with the FIFA coin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That coin, that coin may be worth more than FIFA in the end. It could be quite a coin, actually. Huh? Anyway, thank you, Johnny. Great job. I just thought you should see this trophy because it's really, you know, it's the biggest sporting event in the world, and we have it here. And we appreciate being selected. Thank you very much, Johnny. You do a fantastic job. And welcome to the first ever White House Digital Assets Summit. I know that many of you have been fighting for years for this, and it's an honor to be with you at the White House. I want to thank the White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, Treasury Secretary. This is David right here, in case you don't know. You know David. And a man who's doing a great job as Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, who's right here. Scott, thank you very much. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, wherever you may be, Howard. Hi, Howard. He's doing some interesting work right now with all that's going on. He's right in the middle of it and doing a great job. Thank you. SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler. And thank you. SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce. Thank you, Hester. Acting CFTC Chairman Caroline Pham. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Hello, hello, Tom. Representative Brian Stile. Thank you. Brian, thank you very much. Digital Assets Council Director Bo Hines. Good, Bo. Great job. And many other distinguished guests. We have a lot of very distinguished people around the table. Some of them will be speaking. I want to thank Marco Rubio also, who's right over there. And we have tremendous people very interested in this subject. And last year, I promised to make America the Bitcoin superpower of the world and the crypto capital of the planet. And we're taking historic action to deliver on that promise, as you know, around the table. Yesterday, I signed an executive order officially creating our strategic Bitcoin reserve. And this will be a virtual Fort Knox for digital gold to be housed within the United States Treasury. That's a big thing, Scott. The federal government is already among the largest holders of Bitcoin, as you know, really one of the largest holders in the world, with as many as 200,000 Bitcoin obtained via civil law and various other forms of law, and including enforcement actions. These existing holdings will form the foundation of the new reserve. Unfortunately, in recent years, the U.S. government has foolishly sold tens of thousands of additional Bitcoin that were worth billions and billions of dollars had they not sold them, but they did sell them, mostly during the Biden administration. Not a good thing to have done. From this day on, America will follow the rule that every Bitcoin knows very well: never sell your Bitcoin. That's a little phrase that they have. I don't know if that's right or not. Who the hell knows, right? Who knows? Who knows? But so far, it's been right. And well, let's keep it that way. The Treasury and Commerce Departments will also explore new pathways to accumulate additional Bitcoin holdings for the reserve, provided it's done at no cost to the taxpayers. We don't want any cost to the taxpayers. In addition, my order directs federal agencies to conduct an inventory of all crypto assets currently held by the U.S. government and determine how they can be transferred easily to the Treasury. Non-Bitcoin digital assets will be held in a new U.S. digital asset stockpile where they will be managed properly. My administration also is working to end the federal bureaucracy's war on crypto, which was really going on pretty wildly during Biden until the election came about. About 5 months before the election, he became a big fan because he heard how many people were in favor of it and how many people love it and respect it. But I guess it didn't work out too well for him. People understood what was going on and paved the way for groundbreaking innovations in institutional finance. Under the Bitcoin administration, regulators strong-armed banks. I mean, they really did. They strong-armed banks into closing the accounts of crypto businesses and entrepreneurs, effectively blocking some money transfers to and from exchanges, and they weaponized government against the entire industry. But I know that feeling also. Maybe better than you do. All of that will soon be over, and we are ending Operation Choke Point 2.0. Now, some people really suffered. It was ridiculous what they were doing. But in the end, they came around, but they came around for the wrong reasons. They came around only because they wanted votes, and they saw that tens of millions of people were against them because of what they were doing. I also want to express my strong support for the efforts of lawmakers in Congress as they work on bills to provide regulatory certainty for dollar-backed stablecoins and the digital assets market. They're working very hard on that. This is a tremendous opportunity for economic growth and innovation in our financial sector, and will really go a long way. I think it's going to be a tremendous, we feel like pioneers in a way, of tremendous method of growth. And things are very much tied, and we want to keep it that way, the U.S. dollar. Long into the future, we're going to keep it that way. I hope lawmakers will send that legislation to my desk before August recess if they can. And they're very much working with you, and you know a lot of them, and a lot of them were committed right from the very beginning. So I just want to congratulate you all for being at the White House today, and a man who knows more about Bitcoin and AI and just about everything else than anybody, David Saxton. I'd like to have you say a few words, David.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're all here today because of your leadership, your vision, and your generosity, and I really want to thank you for that. We're also here because of your desire to make America great and to introduce a golden age in America, including for digital assets. And we're here because of your love of innovators, or as you might say, high IQ people. Yeah, we know you love high IQ people. And we have about 30 of them here in the room today. These are the top people in the digital asset industry. And one other thing that I think that you love is legal fairness. This is an industry that was subjected to prosecution and persecution for the last 4 years, horrible lawfare, and nobody knows what that feels like better than you do. So we really appreciate the fact that you understand legal fairness and that you're always willing to fight for the right thing, for legal fairness. You never back down. You stand defiant, even in the face of an assassin's bullet. It's an inspiration to everyone in this room, I think. So it's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I just want to say it's an honor to work for you. It's an honor to work for a president who works every day to get so much done on behalf of the American people. Your administration is moving at tech speed. It's really amazing. It's actually faster than any startup that I've been part of. Is that your administration moves even faster. So I just want to say thank you for having me be a part of it. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I love working for you, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, David, very much. Appreciate it.
And now I just want to pass the ball to Secretary Bessent.
Scott?
David, so today, when President Trump has signed the executive order to establish the strategic Bitcoin reserve and stockpile, we're going to position the United States as a leader among nations in the digital asset strategy. It's important for the United States to recognize this fact and get ahead of the other nations in the digital age. We applaud the President's direction to use the digital assets already in possession of the nation, and we are going to establish this Bitcoin reserve. We will use this authority to augment the asset side of the United States balance sheet. As I've said many times, President Trump is creating assets for the American people while most past presidents have created debt, and a large part of this asset program can be in digital assets. We are going to end the regulatory weaponization against digital assets. The Biden administration's actions did nothing other than punish innovators, and that all of you have made it here today is really a testament to your fortitude. Much of Treasury's responsibility in this order relates to the tax code and determinations around risk weightings, and I'm here to assure you that we are going to work with the Controller of the Currency, the IRS, and we're going to rescind and amend all applicable previous guidance. And we are going to put a lot of thought into the stablecoin regime, and as President Trump has directed, we are going to keep the U.S. the dominant reserve currency in the world, and we will use stablecoins to do that. Thank you.
Technology is at the foundation of the Trump presidency. He understands technology, he embraces technology, and he's going to use technology to drive America forward. The blockchain and Bitcoin technology are a key part of that thinking, and embracing that, and here today shows how much a leader the Trump administration and our president is. He understands it. He embraces it. As you said, you're a pioneer in this place, and this is where we're going. We're using the blockchain, we're using Bitcoin, we're going to use digital assets to pound forward, and Donald Trump is leading the way. Can't be more proud of you today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Howard. Kelly, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is truly a historic day, and as a crypto founder, I couldn't be more proud to be part of your administration. You're moving at the speed of tech for sure, and I will just say it's a great day to have the war on not just crypto, but the war on innovation done. And under your administration, we are truly going to enter into the golden age. And I'll just say, as the administrator of the SBA, small business is a tremendous network that crypto can be deployed against, and so the SBA is open to crypto. So I look forward to working with all of the leaders in this room to advance your efforts here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much. Tom, please.
Well, Mr. President, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for the amazing team that you put together. I want to thank you for David. I mean, this kind of a meeting, no one in this room could have envisioned this just a couple years ago. You are the one that has the vision. You're the one that said, we are going to do 21st century finance right here in the United States of America. I've been doing this for 9 years. It is amazing how far we've come, and that's a credit to you, Mr. President, and your leadership, and God bless you for doing this, because it's going to make a huge difference with everything else you're doing. And by the way, Americans love it. They're going crazy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody else? Go ahead, please.
Does anyone want to say a couple of words? Cameron or Tyler, do you want to?
You're very shy in front of the
camera. Actually, Cameron, I think you said something earlier that I thought was really profound. You said that a year ago you thought it would be more likely that you'd end up in jail than at the White House. Not to put you on the spot, because you didn't do anything wrong, but that was the environment a year ago. But do you guys want to say something, either one of you?
Sure, that was actually Tyler who said that. but it's
sorry, I still get mixed up.
But yeah, we never thought that we'd get attacked the way we did in our backyard after trying to do the right thing for so many years and always trying to raise the bar with respect to regulations. So it's truly wonderful to see how things have changed and how the pendulum has swung back in the way that it has. And we've always felt that the U.S. should lead in Bitcoin and crypto, and it's ours to sort of lead and win. And it's just wonderful what President Trump has been doing with this, and we look forward to working together. And thanks for inviting us, David, and setting this up.
Thank you. Thank you both. Please.
I was just going to say thank you, Mr. President. Cameron takes credit for a lot of my things I say, so it's not the first time. But the U.S. won the internet, and the U.S. should win crypto. So thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you both very much. High IQ individuals around this table. That's what I always say. We need high IQ. So thank you very much. Would anybody like to say anything? Please.
I just want to express my deep gratitude for the seriousness with which you're approaching our industry and how you're actually helping guide it in the right direction. I've worked with many central banks in other countries, and when I was working there, I was wondering why I, as an American citizen, can't help the United States financial system reach this higher level that the world is on course towards generally. Right. And so I'm very grateful that finally there's been a new level of kind of common sense and adoption of these ideas. Me and the other people in this room do believe that the crypto, blockchain, Web3 infrastructure is the next iteration of the financial system. And I think that the U.S. should have its leadership position continue in that new financial system. And I'm very, very happy to see people like David Sachs, Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick taking this very seriously with their time, and very grateful to them too. So I'm just overjoyed to see this, and I think it is a big part of how the U.S. can continue its role in the global financial system. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought it was very important that we stay in the front of this one. This is a big one. And as you know, China is pushing forward and very strongly as usual. But we're way in the lead, as we are in AI and other things, and we want to stay there. So I thought this was very important, and we have some brilliant people sitting around this table. And it's an honor to have you involved, but we want to stay at the forefront of everything. And this is a very important day in your lives. I know you worked, some of you, very long before people really understood what was happening. And so I congratulate you, but this is a big day. Being in the White House is a big deal, and you have great support. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, media. Thank you. Please.
And that was President Trump at the White House attending a digital asset summit talking about crypto. Up next, an unexploded bomb is discovered in suburban Paris. The World War II era bomb keeps some trains from running on time. Stay tuned for that.
Supermodel Cindy Crawford doesn't just walk the red carpet, she rocks it. At 58, she steals the show and wows the press. Hollywood Life exclaims, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. While Page 6 raves, she's still as gorgeous as ever. What is Cindy's secret? It's meaningful beauty. And now with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever. Watch as the appearance of lines and wrinkles are diminished in just weeks. It's no wonder everyone's talking about meaningful beauty.
My makeup artist said, your skin has been looking great lately. What products are you using? And I said, I'm using Meaningful Beauty. And she said, really? I've tried Meaningful Beauty before. I love those products. And then the other lady down in the trailer said, I use Meaningful Beauty. I love it.
Our new and improved formulas deliver age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin where wrinkles begin. And this brand new offer is Cindy's most exciting ever. Because when you order, you'll get Cindy's exclusive Super Brightening Duo, a $120 value absolutely free. First, you'll get 60 of our Revive and Brighten eye masks, the celebrity secret that visibly smooths, awakens, and restores the area around your eyes. Next, discover the power of our Vitamin C Biphase Brightening Oil for an immediate boost of glamour and glow.
I'm not ashamed to say I am 53 years old. Thank you, Cindy.
The total effect of this free gift package? A red carpet ready complexion. Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
So make the call or go online now and put yourself on the path to the most beautiful skin of your life. Trust me, it's worth it.
This special offer is not available anywhere else, so don't delay. Scan the code, go to meaningfulbeauty.com, or call the number on your screen now.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gone Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
In today's Business Matters, well-known drugstore chain Walgreens is going private in a potential billion-dollar agreement. Walgreens Boots Alliance closed a deal valued at nearly $24 billion. So Thursday's announcement comes after the company's largely disastrous run on the public stock markets. So over the past 5 years, Walgreens shares have lost nearly 80% of their value. The company says a private equity firm has agreed to pay more than $11 a share in cash. Walgreens first went public in 1927. The deal brings an end to the chain's nearly 100 years as a publicly traded company. Exchanges on the NASDAQ could soon take place around the clock. International demand has surged in recent years for the U.S. market. That's why NASDAQ plans to introduce 24-hour trading. In a LinkedIn post, NASDAQ President Hal Cohen said that it has started discussions with regulators. It expects to launch 24-hour trading 5 days a week in the second half of next year. The round-the-clock trading model will allow exchanges to tap into global demand. Brokerages Charles Schwab and Robinhood currently offer limited 24-hour trading on their platforms. Meanwhile, U.S. lawmakers are pressing Chinese telecommunications companies over any connections to the military or authorities in China. Leaders of a House panel have asked China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom to answer its questions by the end of the month. This is based on a letter seen by Reuters. Lawmakers have cited national security concerns posed by the company's presence in the U.S. They fear the firms could exploit access to American data through their U.S. cloud and internet businesses. The letters show growing bipartisan concern about the Chinese Communist Party and the telecommunications footprint in the U.S. after a series of Chinese-led attacks. The subsidiary of the world's most heavily indebted property developer seeing major decline in profit. So China's Evergrande Property Services Group said today it could see a decrease of up to 37% in its annual profit for 2024. And the decline is due to legal expenses, among other reasons. Evergrande Property began legal proceedings against its parent. In early January, a Guangzhou court in China ordered Evergrande to repay $1.585 billion owed to its subsidiary. Evergrande Property expects to lose a record loss of up to $80 million in profit. And a message to Congress from a group of American businesses. The U.S. must crack down on Chinese companies being subsidized by the Chinese Communist Party and those circumventing U.S. tariffs by shipping goods through third countries. Executives from a slate of mid-sized industrial companies met with lawmakers on Capitol Hill Wednesday. They said for years, the U.S. has been losing out on tariff revenue. And what's more, American companies have been forced out of business by Chinese firms that exploited trade rules. Take a listen.
For years, we have battled unfairly traded imports of cast iron products. Heavily subsidized Chinese foundries operate below cost and dump these products in the United States far below fair market value. Over the course of the last 7 years, we have spent millions of dollars to avail ourselves of every legal remedy to stop dumping, illegal subsidies, transshipment, and customs fraud from Chinese producers who wish to take our jobs. We have filed and won anti-dumping and countervailing duty cases, with duties ranging from 41 to 494%. To avoid paying these duties, Chinese producers transship their products through third countries, primarily Malaysia and Cambodia, where they are fraudulently labeled as originating from those nations. By our estimate, and to Betsy's point, we believe Customs has been unable to collect $51 million in duties owed on our products alone.
So the speaker just now, that was Brad Moeller. He's the vice president of corporate communications, Charlotte Pipe and Foundry. So the company has been founded for more than 120 years in 1901. It's the largest American producer of cast iron, plastic pipe, and fittings for plumbing. Next, China saw imports unexpectedly tumble over January and February, with exports also cooling off. Inbound shipments dropped 8.4% when they had been expected to rise. Exports grew at less than half the forecast rate. The disappointing figures comes as the trade war heats up. Since taking office, President Trump has imposed an extra 10% tariff on Chinese goods and then doubled it for a cumulative 20% in new levies. Now, the drop-off in export growth may be related to shippers rushing out goods in previous weeks to get ahead of the curbs. As for imports, experts say it may show that Beijing is scaling back purchases of key commodities. Numbers were down for grains, iron ore, and crude oil. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell provided an update on the latest economic data at the University of Chicago Monetary Policy Forum. Today's numbers come as the Trump administration pursues its America First policy. Take a listen.
Despite elevated levels of uncertainty, the U.S. economy continues to be in a good place. The labor market is solid, and inflation has moved closer to our 2% longer-run goal. At the Fed, we are intently focused on our dual mandate goals given to us by Congress: maximum employment and stable prices. Turning to the recent data, the economy has been growing at a solid pace. GDP expanded at a 2.3% annual rate in the fourth quarter of last year, extending a period of consistent growth that has been supported by resilient consumer spending. Recent indicators point to a possible moderation in consumer spending relative to the rapid growth over the second half of 2024. Further, recent surveys of households and businesses point to heightened uncertainty about the economic outlook. It remains to be seen how these developments might affect future spending and investment. Sentiment readings have not been a good predictor of consumption growth in recent years. We continue to carefully monitor a variety of indicators of household and business spending. Turning to the labor market, many indicators show that the labor market is solid and broadly in balance. The jobs report released this morning showed employers added 151,000 jobs to payrolls in February, and the unemployment rate ticked up 0.1% to 4.1% last month. Smoothing over the month-to-month volatility, since September, employers have added a solid 200,000 jobs a month on average. The unemployment rate remains low and has held in a narrow range between 3.9% and 4.2% over the past year.
Powell added that the U.S. Central Bank will be in no rush to cut interest rates while it waits for the impact of Trump's policies on the economy. President Trump has announced a series of moves, including steep import tariffs on major trading partners, Mexico and Canada. Trump has also doubled tariffs on imports from China. The Fed is expected to hold its benchmark interest rate steady between 4.25% and 4.5% at its March 18th meeting. Policymakers will also issue new economic projections. President Trump suspended yesterday tariffs of 25% he had imposed this week on most goods from Canada and Mexico, the latest twist in an ever-unfolding cross-border trade drama. Take a look.
One for Canada, one for Mexico.
Yes, sir. U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday delayed for nearly 1 month his 25% tariffs on a wide range of goods from both Canada and Mexico, the latest twist in this fast-shifting trade policy. The exemption covers Canadian and Mexican goods under the North American Trade Pact. It comes just 2 days after Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on goods from the country's two largest trading partners, which has rattled financial markets and business leaders, who warned the move would hurt American consumers.
Después de hablar con la presidenta de México, Claudia Sheinbaum.
At a press conference, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum read aloud Trump's Truth Social post announcing the 1-month reprieve. She said the decision followed a, quote, respectful phone call with Trump, during which she explained that Mexico's security measures have been working to reduce the flow of fentanyl into the U.S.
Solamente en febrero.
In February alone, the reduction in fentanyl seizures on the U.S. side of the border with Mexico was reduced by 41.5%.
Entonces le dije, estamos teniendo resultados.
So I said to him, we are getting results, President Trump. Now that you put in the tariffs, how are we going to continue cooperating, collaborating with something that hurts the people of Mexico?
April 2nd is going to be a very big day for America.
Trump said the tariff exemptions will last until April 2nd, when he has threatened to impose a global regime of reciprocal tariffs on all U.S. trading partners. The latest development comes a day after Trump exempted automotive goods from the 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico. Economists said those levies threaten to stoke inflation and stall growth across all three economies.
A blow to America's farm sector. Canada has suspended imports from the biggest U.S. pork processing plant. And this comes as Washington and Ottawa spar over tariffs. But the U.S. Department of Agriculture says the suspension was unrelated to recent trade activity. Instead, the agency says this is in line with standard protocols. Under Canadian law, 3 non-compliance issues within 6 months triggers a temporary suspension. The USDA says it's working with Smithfield Foods in North Carolina to resolve the issues and see whether Canada will reconsider the suspension. A French company is joining the Trump administration's fleet to revive the shipping industry in the U.S. CMA-CGM has pledged to invest $20 billion in the U.S. to build out shipping logistics and terminals. The company says projects will include the expansion of container ports and the creation of an air cargo hub in Chicago. The CEO of the French shipping firm said that the investment will create 10,000 jobs. CMA-CGM has started talks about possibly building medium-sized container vessels in the U.S. President Trump is trying to weaken China's grip on the shipping sector. He's expected to impose a levy on ships linked to China when they make stops at U.S. ports. Gold price swings have calmed. As a result, gold moving from London to the U.S. has slowed. The London Bullion Market Association reported that the outflow of gold stored in London vaults to the U.S. eased up last month. In fact, the amount of gold stored in London vaults at the end of last month dipped to a 5-year low. Since late November, though, when President Trump threatened tariffs on Mexico and Canada, bullion worth nearly $65 billion entered the COMEX gold stocks that drove them up 126% to a record high. The inflow to the COMEX stocks has significantly slowed in recent weeks. Premiums between U.S. gold futures and London spot prices have returned to normal levels. A privately owned lunar lander is no longer working after landing sideways. It's now stuck in a crater near the moon's south pole. Uncertainty of outcome sent the company stock down on Thursday, and today officials say the lander's mission is over. NTD Sean Marshall has more on the story.
Texas-based Intuitive Machines stock was down over 22% at the time of this report on Friday. The uncertain condition of their Athena moon lander on Thursday left people wondering about the lander's future. Despite the announcement of a successful landing, a lack of clear information triggered investors, resulting in a sharp sell-off after the mission's live stream ended. Despite the drop, the stock was still around 60% higher than it was a year ago. The private lunar lander is no longer working after landing sideways in a crater near the moon's south pole, and its mission is over, officials said Friday. After landing, mission controllers were able to accelerate several program and payload milestones, including part of a NASA experiment, before the lander's batteries depleted. Intuitive Machines does not expect Athena to recharge. This was the second landing attempt for Intuitive Machines. A mission last year also ended with a sideways landing. The company's About page says Intuitive Machines provides lunar delivery, data transmission, and infrastructure services to open access to the moon for the progress of humanity. NASA originally paid $62 million to Intuitive Machines to get its 3 experiments to the moon. Intuitive Machines CEO said Thursday that the company may delay its 3rd lunar landing mission set for next year under the NASA Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. The space agency also awarded the firm a 4th mission in 2027 to deliver 6 payloads to the moon that could help reveal the origin of water throughout the solar system. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And Roundup weed killer could be pulled from shelves unless it gets more legal protection over liability. So far, the maker, Bayer, has paid about $10 billion to settle disputed claims that Roundup causes cancer. The company has set aside another $6 billion for more pending cases. The German company argues people should not be able to take it to court, given the EPA and regulators around the world have repeatedly labeled the product as safe to use. A note from analysts revealed that Bayer leadership has said it will need to exit the business without legal clarity. It has called on U.S. lawmakers to strengthen legal protection against liability. President Donald Trump is considering extending the deadline for TikTok to be sold. Trump said yesterday he would probably extend the timeline if a deal isn't reached by the initial deadline. In January, the president signed an executive order giving TikTok Chinese parent company 75 days to find a new owner. He didn't say how long that extension would last. He added that China will also play a role in the decision. Last April, President Biden signed a law requiring the app to be sold or face a U.S. ban. Law enforcement officials and the lawmakers who backed the bill argue that TikTok poses a national security threat. The U.S. economy added 151,000 jobs last month, according to the latest jobs report, the first fully monthly tally of the labor market under Donald Trump's 2nd presidential term. For more analysis, I spoke to Julia Pollack, chief economist at ZipRecruiter. Take a look. How's the labor market doing? Because the February job report showing below expectations growth. What does this signal? Is a slowdown on the horizon?
This is a solid report. I mean, that 151,000 number should be seen in the context of an administration in which immigration has already fallen substantially, and a time in our history in which the population is aging out of the labor force. So it's a very strong top line number. At the same time, there are some signs of softening in this report, not of a collapse, but of some signs of softness. For example, the work week is unusually short, 34.1 hours. That's a number typically only seen in recessions. It coincides with an increase in the share of workers working part-time for economic reasons. That means forced to take part-time jobs when they'd rather be working full-time. That is happening at the same time that we've seen a pop in the share of workers holding multiple jobs. And partly it really is because employers are cutting hours and workers are needing to find more than one job to pay the bills.
How significant are the impacts from federal job cuts? Because the unemployment rate actually ticked up, right, to 4.1%?
Yes, so the unemployment rate probably does not reflect the federal workforce cuts. Remember, this report is based on a survey conducted in the week of February 10th, and so it only reflects a small share of the federal workforce cuts that have taken place. It probably, that 10,000 decline that we saw in the number of federal workers is probably a fraction of the 30,000 probationary workers who had been laid off at that point. And we'll probably see that number get bigger in the coming months.
So in addition to the work hours, labor force participation declined as well. What's your angle on this? What's causing this? Something to worry about or not?
I think it's connected to sectoral trends. So what we're seeing is restaurants shutting down and shedding jobs. In this report, 27,500 jobs were lost at restaurants. Why? Well, it's a hangover of the big spending that we did and the high inflation and high interest rates. Those especially are hurting small businesses, small restaurants that rely on credit card financing. You know, most small businesses in America don't rely on business loans, they rely on credit cards. And those payments are just too high for businesses to stay afloat right now. We also, so why is that connected to labor force participation? Well, restaurants are often the bottom rung of the labor force ladder. They're an entry point for workers. The other entry point that we're seeing struggle is in tech, with computer systems design and related services shedding 9,800 jobs in this report. Tech has lost jobs for about 2 years now, and there are lots of young Americans who, thinking that tech was the place to be, majored in computer science and related fields. And they're finding a very soft labor market. And so many are taking a long time to hit their stride and enter the labor force.
All right, Julia, always great to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Good talking to you.
And Costco could be mixing up its supply chain over tariffs. The membership-only retailer said it would consider making changes to its international supply chain if tariffs lead to big price hikes. On an earnings call, the CEO explained that there aren't many items it can't find a replacement for. On that same call, the warehouse giant reported missing Wall Street expectations for its second quarter profit. Only about 1/3 of Costco's U.S. sales are products imported from other countries, with less than half of those from China, Mexico, and Canada. But Costco's margins are being impacted by soaring coffee, cocoa, and egg prices. Wendy's decades-long chocolate or vanilla-only frosty flavors will end with a new makeover later this year. The new offerings, called Frosty Swirls and Frosty Fusions, will allow customers to either add new sauces or mix-ins with new ones to create unseen new flavor combinations. New packaging with a new cup lid, a blue spoon will also be added to create maximum customer satisfaction. The change comes at a time when sales are down across the industry and customers want more and better offerings while competition is getting tougher by the day. Okay, on to stocks. U.S. indexes finished higher today, rebounding from early declines after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the economy was in a good place, but stocks still posted a weekly loss on uncertainty about U.S. trade policy. Now, markets have been roiled this entire week by uncertainty about Trump's tariff decisions. So that's on imported goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. Meanwhile, reciprocal trade barriers and other duties are expected to take effect in the following weeks. We'll keep a close eye on that. So just a quick update there, and that's it for today's Business Matters. Coming up after the break, a strategic Bitcoin reserve. President Trump wants to use the cryptocurrency seized by the government as a digital Fort Knox. Is this a good idea? Our data reporter with the scoop.
At Mathis Home, we understand that your home is a reflection of you. And during our spring style event, we have fresh new looks that are waiting to make your home look and feel great at the lowest prices. And with all the latest styles in bloom, you'll find savings in every department. Whether it's a clean and modern sectional or a rustic and traditional dining table, we have it in stock with fast and free delivery. Come find the look that's right for you at our spring style event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. They're always in their own world. twice the work, twice the surprises.
Just try it.
But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling.
I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
My graduation was something I will never forget. People like you and me sometimes may have doubts in yourself, but I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
President Trump has ordered the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Our data reporter Kevin Hogan is following this story. Kevin, can an asset as volatile as Bitcoin be used as a reserve?
Fort Knox stores gold, but President Trump, through executive order, wants to create what his crypto czar calls a digital Fort Knox, and that's the strategic Bitcoin reserve. It'll hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, other things that the United States has, and they usually get it from the U.S. Marshals seizing it from illegal activity. Why now? There could be a couple reasons for that, but according to David Sachs, Trump's crypto czar, that's $17 billion that the United States has lost because they sold their Bitcoin prematurely. Now, that's a lot of money, and they're trying to make sure that they have that in their hand. So what does that actually look like on a timeline? Well, you see that, again, these market rallies always happen after these sell-offs. So the black, those are when the auctions go on and the U.S. Marshals sell their seized Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin value is shown here in green. So, I mean, it's almost about 100,000, 90,000 or so right now. But look at this. Before the market rallies right here, this market rally, then that's when they sold it off. So they sold it at a low point. Again, another point right here. They sold it right there. What happened after another rally happened? They sold this big one right here, and then a big rally. So they keep losing their money because they sell it prematurely. Trump and the borders in these crypto czars just want to put a stop to that and hold this. It's part of Trump's efforts to make the United States a crypto capital of the world, to use his term for it. Now, at the same time, you look at the sales of this. Well, you also talk about the big X factor, that's the volatility. So we're just looking at volatility in a couple different assets. This is how much the US dollar changes with respect to the euro. So you're looking anywhere from about 1 to 4%. It's pretty stable, it's pretty low. What about gold to the US dollar? A little more volatility, but again, you're still into that 1 to 6% range. But when you look at Bitcoin to the US dollar, how volatile is that? That just starts shooting up. Let me clear this for you. That's up to 80% in its early days. It started around 2009, and then it has kind of tapered off. Here, let me draw this envelope for you so you can see the peaks. See, it's becoming a little bit more stable. That volatility peaks are just, reducing down, but that's still 30%. So the real question is, can this asset be used as a reserve? Because according to, for example, Investopedia, they say that if you're going to use your crypto assets as your capital backing, well, you have just as much odds on losing all of that as you do gaining it. And now the United States, it does have quite a bit of cryptocurrency. For example, right now, it has about 200,000 Bitcoin. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's $17 billion. So Trump wants to keep all that. And he says it's not going to cost the American taxpayer a dime. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Kevin. Next, the Trump administration has canceled $400 million worth of grants and contracts to Columbia University. The General Services Administration cited what it called inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. The canceled funds will come out of $5 billion in grants committed to Columbia. The GSA made the joint statement with the Departments of Justice, Education, and Health and Human Services. Columbia has been one of a handful of universities at the center of college protests demanding an end to American support for Israel. Columbia has previously said it made efforts to tackle anti-Semitism. It was not immediately clear which grants and contracts were being cut. Success for Starlink. Its direct-to-cell internet service has been granted permission to operate at higher power, which it says will allow faster and more reliable new services for consumers across the country. The Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, decided to waive a rule that limited power levels. SpaceX wants to operate at what's called a higher power flux in density, which the company says will avoid clashes with adjacent band networks. This is to make connectivity faster and more reliable for consumers in 911 emergency calls in remote locations. T-Mobile supported the move, providing its own analyses that indicated the higher power level would not cause interference to terrestrial networks, such as T-Mobile. The FCC granted the waiver on the condition that SpaceX addresses any harmful interference if it occurs. And 2 active duty U.S. Army soldiers and a former soldier were arrested on Thursday in connection with an alleged scheme to sell military information to China. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us now. Jack, good afternoon. What are the charges?
Good afternoon, Don. Well, it's concerning 2 soldiers who are Jian Zhao and Li Tian, and they're stationed in Washington State. And the former soldier is Ruyo Duan, and the group allegedly stole several classified hard drives and sensitive documents with pictures of them as well, and sold them to individuals in China. Now, the top secret information concerned weapons systems as well as military readiness in a potential conflict with China. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement, quote, "The defendants arrested today are accused of betraying our country, actively working to weaken America's defense capabilities and empowering our adversaries in China." Additionally, FBI Director Kash Patel said that this behavior from our service members who are entrusted with sensitive information, military information, cannot be tolerated. And this just goes to show the extent of the Chinese Communist Party's reach already trying to in the U.S. military. Back to you, Don.
And Jack, the Trump administration said yesterday that foreigners who support Hamas and other terrorists will be deported. What's the latest on that?
Right. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the State Department will deport foreigners who break the law in support of terrorists. Now, Rubio mentioned specifically that international students in the U.S. supporting terrorist groups. He said in a statement, quote, "Those who support designated terrorist organizations, including Hamas, threaten our national security. The United States has zero tolerance for foreign visitors who support terrorists. Violators of U.S. law, including international students, face visa denial or revocation and deportation." Now, Senator Tom Cotton came out in support of Rubio's statement. He said on X today, quote, "A green card or student visa does not give individuals the right to break our laws, harass our students, and openly sympathize with terrorists. I commend Secretary Rubio for taking swift action and revoking the visas of those involved in criminal activity." And I reached out to the State Department today. A State Department spokesperson told me that the department has broad authority to revoke visas. They also said, quote, "The United States has zero tolerance for foreign visitors who support terrorists. Violators of U.S. law, including international students, may face visa denial or revocation." Now, this comes after President Trump this week promised to revoke federal funding for colleges that allow illegal agitations on campus. Columbia University, as you said earlier, has become the first to face defunding over this alleged anti-Semitism during student protests on campus. And this was following the Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel back in October 7th, 2023. The Trump administration canceled federal grants to Columbia University, and that's worth around $400 million. And they expect to cut more. About $5 billion is what that college gets from the U.S. government in grants. Now, this comes during concerns over known terrorists entering the U.S. illegally. In August, the House Judiciary Committee released a report that found that Border Patrol arrested 250 people on the terrorist watch list, crossing the southern border illegally. Of those 250, 100 were released into the U.S., being granted asylum, bond, and other immigration relief. Now, most of them came from the Middle East. And earlier this week, Secretary Rubio announced a new policy that restricts visas on foreign government officials if they facilitate illegal immigration. That policy targets the officials in Immigration, Customs, and Airport Authority. Don.
All right, Jack, thank you very much for the report. Next, the Department of Government Efficiency says it terminated the leases of 30 Food and Drug Administration sites across the country. In this week's announcement, DOGE said the properties totaled nearly 250,000 square feet. It said terminating these leases will lead to nearly $30 million in savings. DOGE also canceled property leases at a number of other government departments, including the State Department and the Social Security Administration. Meanwhile, the CIA will lay off an unreleased number of junior officers as part of DOGE's cost-cutting sweep. A spokesperson said yesterday new hires with behavioral issues or who have been deemed a poor fit will be fired. And DOGE said yesterday that it canceled a $56,000 contract to water about 8 plants at the Veteran Affairs Department. DOGE said it would water the plants for free instead. Maryland, California, and 18 other state attorneys general are suing nearly 24 federal agencies. They seek to reinstate tens of thousands of newer workers laid off in recent weeks. Among the requirements is providing 60 days of advance notice to workers and states. According to the lawsuit, the agencies have not been complying with legal requirements for reductions in force. The states say they've been harmed because they're struggling to identify which agencies have conducted layoffs and which terminated workers require state support. Britain and Japan are seeking closer economic trade ties amid U.S. tariff threats. The UK's foreign secretary says Japan should ramp up economic pressure on Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine says it received the first set of funds from the proceeds of frozen Russian assets. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us.
British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said on Friday that Japan could help Ukraine by ramping up economic pressure on Russia. This during a meeting with his Japanese counterpart in Tokyo.
Putin's illegal war in Ukraine was a major focus. We both want to see this war brought to a lasting end. Europe is stepping up, but Japan can help too, including on ramping up economic pressure on Putin.
Lammy added that Japan and the UK have a shared interest in maintaining a rules-based world order, something his Japanese counterpart agreed to.
We agreed that Japan and the UK will continue to exchange views towards achieving a just and lasting peace in Ukraine.
Lammy said both the UK and Japan have an interest in maintaining their friendship. Particularly, he said, at a time where economic growth and security are closely linked. Japan has the 4th largest economy in the world, while Britain the 6th. British Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds said the UK and Japan agree international free trade is crucial.
Economic security is national security. That is why the UK and Japan have agreed to enhance our economic security partnership. Our close relationship means that we can be important partners for each other on this. In fact, at this time, we must be.
Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said on Friday that Ukraine received a first package of funds worth about $1 billion from Britain. This was secured by the proceeds of frozen Russian assets. He said the funds will go towards strengthening Ukraine's defense capabilities and benefiting the country. After Shmyhal's announcement, an ally of Putin said Britain would have to return the money to Moscow. The Speaker of Russia's lower house of parliament called it an illegal gift to Ukraine that violates the principle of property rights. Turning to Europe, the EU's top representatives debriefed partner countries on Thursday's emergency summit. The 27 EU leaders signed off on a move to loosen budget restrictions so that willing EU countries can increase their military spending. This could free up around $705 billion. Following the debrief, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hailed this as a historic step forward, saying closer collaboration and a combined industrial base was vital. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
European Union leaders are discussing plans to boost defense spending. This will align with President Trump's agenda to have the EU take a bigger stake in its own defense. NTD's international correspondent David Revez reports from Paris.
In a joint statement on Thursday, 26 of 27 EU member states pledged to increase defense spending and maintain strong support for Ukraine. EU leaders backed a European Commission proposal allowing more fiscal flexibility for defense. They also discussed a plan to jointly borrow up to about $162 billion to strengthen their militaries. The new defense spending aligns with Trump's request for Europe. Some EU member states also said that they hope this spending can be carried out within a framework of cooperation with Trump's new peace plan for Ukraine. However, EU leaders have recently intensified their stance against Russia, accusing the country of being a direct threat to European nations and engaging in election interference. Meanwhile, a former official with the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Benoît Paré, says Macron's speech on Wednesday marks a turning point in French diplomacy.
He somehow raised the bar higher in terms of the perception of the threat from Russia. So this is some kind of an unprecedented step. I don't think he had ever been so clear about the idea of a threat, direct threat coming from Russia.
EU leaders this week have discussed the possibility of deploying peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. Some countries, including France, Italy, and UK, are willing to do it. However, Russia didn't agree to such a proposal, saying this would lead to an extremely dangerous escalation.
I mean, President Trump right now is on a course not to put boots on the ground, but to have a ceasefire and to have peace agreement in Ukraine. This is what President Trump stands for as of now. Clearly, he said so repeatedly. But the European Union leaders, they are on an opposite path. They do not want peace at any cost. They want peace at Ukraine's conditions and not at Russia's conditions.
Zelensky said on Thursday that US and Ukrainian officials will meet next week to discuss a peace plan. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Up next after the break, an unexploded bomb is discovered in suburban Paris. The World War II era bomb keeps some trains from running on time. Stay tuned for that and more.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first-round draft pick. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father and as a husband. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Welcome back. Police set up a security perimeter and directed people away from the site of an unexploded World War II-era bomb in a northern Paris suburb today. The discovery severely disrupted traffic to and from Paris's bustling Gare du Nord rail station. It's affecting commuter rails and national and international transit at the world's third busiest train station. Departure boards at London's St. Pancras International train station showed multiple trains heading to Paris canceled. The bomb was discovered about a mile away from Gare du Nord in the middle of the tracks. Paris police said the bomb had been discovered in the early morning hours during construction work. France's transport minister said officials expected the disruption to continue for at least the rest of the day. Excellent. That's what a three-time Emmy-nominated sound engineer calls Shen Yun after watching its performance in Las Vegas. NTD is a proud media sponsor of the New York-based performing arts company. Take a look at what the audience members say deeply moved them to tears.
It was breathtaking. I had tears in my eyes almost the whole time. Changed my life. It was inspirational. I love to hear the story of the divinity of humanity portrayed in dance form.
You can't beat live music, and these guys really knew what they were doing. You can tell that they played that song before. You know, I mean, it was very professional, and it adds excitement to the show. The way they play those instruments and the way the music sounded, it really enhanced the show. All the musicians were top notch. I mean, top notch. You know, I doubt you could get much better.
To see a bunch of people like that on stage at one time in synchronicity, you know, you think about the amount of hours that they put into what they do and practicing together to make it one fluid movement, and to hear the orchestra. I love the strings. It's just so beautiful.
Through classical Chinese dance, music, and storytelling, theatergoers are taken on a journey through 5,000 years of classical Chinese culture and values, which were believed to be inspired by the divine. Shring has 8 companies touring the globe simultaneously, bringing in an all-new production every season.
It's very clever the way they put the live person in there, and then the next thing you know, you're watching them up on the screen, or they're up on the screen and they come down and, you know, they jump out on the stage, and all of a sudden there they are on the stage. But the show is great. Just the spectacle, the colors, the costumes, the dancing, you know, it kept you entertained the entire time. When they came out and did that last performance, I'm going, it's over already? And then I looked at my watch and saw I'd been here 3 hours. I couldn't believe it, you know. So it was great. Excellent show.
I could watch it every day. It was beautiful. It was. I'm a better person now, having that whole experience of being a part of my soul. Now I'm very happy.
Excellent job. Keep doing what you're doing. You're bringing happiness and joy to a whole lot of people on this tour.
NTD News, Las Vegas, Nevada.
That's it for today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.